Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Comprehensive Comic. My awakened substitute can develop dependence. Chapter 21. Nandong Yang saw this scene and knew that he should wait for someone to come on stage. Otherwise, it would be a pity for these young and beautiful little witches to die. The old witch can only be said to be by the way. As for why Nandong Yang didn't save those onmyojis and monks, that was because the onmyoji was too weak and died too quickly. He would be dead by the time he reacted. As for the group of hair-picking monks, I simply don't like them, let alone a group of old bald donkeys who cheat money. Nandong Yang patted them. Uegahama Yui and Yatsuya Miko on both sides did not speak, but communicated with each other through the Insect King contract. Tuanzi meets Z, I will use the Insect King chain to try to tie the person up later. Single quote. Tuanzi, just hide behind me and release your stand-in ability. Use your ability directly to the second stage. You won't need to shrink in the third stage. Single quote. Mionzi, one of my chains will be wrapped around you later, and I can control your position at any time to allow you to move better. Single quote. When I ask you to attack, you use a substitute to attack, so as not to kill the Shinomiya girl. Single quote. Understood. Single quote. Okay Nandong-kun. Single quote. The communication within the Insect King contract seems very slow, but in fact it only takes an instant and the communication is completed. After all, this has been achieved. It is absolutely impossible for human technology to achieve zero-distance communication between hearts. Nandong Yang took Miko and Yui to Shinomiya Kagaya. Si Gong Yunan next to him wanted to run away now, but when he saw Nandong Yang was about to take action, he struggled in his heart and stayed to continue watching. Just now, Nandong Yang was able to stop himself from going forward to check on Kagaya Shinomiya. He must have been just like the old Miko and had some real abilities. Otherwise, if you dare to step forward in this situation now, you can only be called a reckless man and an idiot. Believe it or not, but he still hid very carefully, behind a group of servants, with their backs against the door, ready to escape at any time. As Nandong Yang continued to approach Shinomiya Kagaya, 6 chains extended from his back, one of which wrapped around Yatsugamiko's waist. The substitutes of Mionzi and Yui were also released and stood beside him, and they followed each other on both sides of Nandong Yang. At this time, Shinigong Wei looked at Nandong Yang, Mionzi, and Yui and the other 3 approached him, showing an evil smile. If it were the originally beautiful cheeks, this expression would be very pleasing to the eye. But now he looks malnourished, with sunken eye sockets and cheeks, which only makes people feel uncomfortable. And this evil spirit seems to have some intelligence, unlike the first evil spirit that possessed it, which was completely like a beast. I saw 5 chains behind Nandong Yang, like 5 tentacles, wrapping around Kagaya Shinomiya. However, Shinomiya Kagaya just turned around and dodged a few times, and almost dodged 5 chains. Next to him, Tuanzi released his substitute, which turned into the form of a black vicious dog and let out a bark. Shinomiya Kagaya, who was turning over to dodge, suddenly paused in the middle, and then continued to dodge as if nothing happened. However, he panicked a few times on the way and almost got entangled in Nandong Yang's chains. The second bark of the black vicious dog sounded, causing Shinomiya Kagaya, who was still dodging, to stiffen and fall to the ground. Nandong Yang immediately wrapped 5 chains around Kagaya Shinomiya's hands, feet, and neck. Lift Kagaya Shinomiya and tie her into the air. At this time, in the eyes of others who could not see the substitute, Nandong Yang and the others approached Kagaya Shinomiya, and Kagaya Shinomiya began to turn over and avoid. Moreover, one could also hear the constant sound of chains swinging. It looked like Kagaya Shinomiya was hiding from invisible chains. Just after dodging for a while, a dog barked suddenly, but the dog could not be found. Shinomiya Kagaya seemed to be frightened and panicked. When the second dog barked, Shinomiya Kagaya, who was constantly avoiding it, suddenly became stiff and fell to the ground. After a while, it seemed as if it was suspended by invisible chains, floating in the air. Only the old witch next to her could see clearly what was going on. I can't help but sigh. Today's young people are really powerful. Just 2 people were able to catch someone. At this time, Shinomiya Kagaya, who was tied up, had resumed his movements and began to struggle in the air. As he struggled, the black energy all over his body began to riot, and various grimaces emerged from the ghost energy from time to time. After counting, there were a dozen evil spirits, which shocked Nangong Yang and the old witch. There are so many evil spirits, and they are all special evil spirits that can affect reality. They must have been cultivated by spiritual masters. It stands to reason that Kagaya Shinomiya, who is just an ordinary human being with so many evil spirits, would have been dead long ago and could not wait for their rescue. Neither Nangong Yang nor the old witch could understand. Nangong Yang didn't think much. He made the spiritual mudra with both hands and mentally transmitted the message at the same time. It's your turn to see you, and in a moment there will be about 10 evil spirits running out of Miss Shinomiya's body. The chain that once entangled you would carry you continuously at high speed. Single quote. Remember to hammer all the evil spirits with the blaster and Tuanzi, and you can help Mionzi by the side. Single quote. He squeezed Yan Ling's hand seal and shouted, "Evil spirit leaving the body." The words Nangong Yang spoke formed a burst of white ripples and spread outward. At the same time, he mobilized the spiritual power in his mind to support the chain wrapped around Mionzi's waist. When the white ripples touched Shinomiya Kagaya, the evil spirit on her body seemed to have some kind of reaction. They rushed out of Shinomiya Kagaya's body one after another, making the people in the room feel weak in their legs. Each of these evil spirits looked strange and completely unacceptable to humans. The evil spirits just rushed out, and before they could do anything, they saw a figure flying towards a group of evil spirits quickly. The flying figure was naturally a violent god floating in front of Yotsuya Miko. As Miko approaches the evil spirit, the violent god in front is the first to come into contact with the evil spirit. No need to say anything more about Euler, and let's get started. Ola, 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 Ola. Under Miko's command, the evil spirits in front of him were completely enveloped by the punching range of the violent god, with nearly 100 punches per second. Spread out like this, an evil spirit can receive 4 or 5 punches every second. Moreover, as the number and intensity of punch attacks continue to increase, the sound of the sonic boom of the punch continues to increase, and the wind blowing around him becomes louder each time. The hair in the room was blowing wildly. In particular, Kagaya Shinomiya, who was closest to the substitute, puffed her mouth and turned her lips. As for Yotsuya Miko, she hid behind her substitute and didn't feel much of the punch. Several evil spirits couldn't bear the punches, and when they were about to run to another place, the chains wrapped around Miko's body would lead Miko to move quickly, catch up with them and continue to beat them. It only lasted for about 10 seconds, and all the evil spirits that came out of the body were destroyed. Only then did Mionzi ask the substitute to stop. As the avatar stopped attacking, the wind in the room also stopped. This was the first time for Nangong Yang to see Miko's stand in at full strength. It only lasted about 10 seconds, and its power was almost as powerful as that of a mortar. Horrible, terrible. Yui opened her mouth in surprise. She was very surprised even when she saw the child. After all, she had never allowed the god of violence to exert its full power. Nangong Yang was not as surprised as they were, but looked at Shinomiya Kagaya, who was still tied up in chains. After observing with spiritual vision and finding that there was no evil spirit in the body, he put it back on the restraint bed. Nangong Yang looked back, towards Sigong Yanan. Master of the Fourth Palace, the evil spirit in your daughter's body has been expelled. You can come and take a look. Sigong Yanan only hesitated for a moment and then walked over. Seeing Shinomiya Kagaya lying on the restraint bed, she didn't look as black and angry as before. But it seemed that the whole person looked very bad, and the flesh and blood on his body was almost gone, and he looked like he was about to die. Sigong Yanan's face is very ugly. Immediately ask the servants around to clean up all the stumps and broken arms. The Shinomiya family's dedicated medical team was called to treat Shinomiya Kagaya. At the same time, let Hayasaka I take the old Miko, the young Miko and Nangong Yang to the reception hall. It is worth mentioning that the muscular monk who could not stand up because of his weak legs actually survived. Because his legs were weak, he lay down on the spot and pretended to be dead, thus escaping the disaster. It's just that he will have to bear the price of deceiving the Shinomiya family. In the reception hall, Nangong Yang drank Hayasaka I, made tea and ate snacks with a calm expression. Next to them, Mitsuko and Yui were just drinking tea and had no appetite at all. After arriving at the reception hall, Nangong cancelled the words and meditation on Jeonzi and Yui. And Nangong was constantly comforting the two of them. Only then did the two of them calm down. At this time, Sigong Yunan returned to the reception hall, but his expression was sad. You two adults have been waiting for a long time. The reward you agreed on before is a penny. Here is a black card of 100 million yen. As for a promise made by our Shinomiya family, it can be fulfilled at any time. Then he gave the two black cards he had prepared to Nangong and the old witch respectively. At this time, Sigong Yunan seemed to have thought of something, and with a little hope in his expression, he looked at Nangong and the old witch. I wonder if you two adults have any means of treating this little girl. I wonder if you two adults have any means of treating this little girl. The old witch looked at Nangong. She had no intention of speaking first, so she spoke. I don't know how serious Miss Shinomiya's injury is. Only by knowing can we judge whether it can be treated. The old witch didn't dare to speak too fully. Sigong Yunan looked at Nangong. It's pretty much the same meaning. You have to see it before you can judge. Nangong held the black card in his hand and looked at it. Can you two adults go over and have a look now? The treatment fee can be calculated separately. At this time, Sigong Yunan seemed so humble, and he obviously had different feelings for his little daughter. This is the child of the woman I once loved deeply, and I also believe that this is my child. So I cannot accept that it passed away so easily. Let's go, Nangong said softly. The old dirty girl nodded. Thank you, sir. Sigong Yunan, after bowing to the two of them, walked ahead to lead the way. Sigong Yunan took the two of them to a new room. The decoration here was very warm, except for the girl on the bed. At this time, he was so skinny that he was almost skin and bones. There were still several needles and intravenous drips inserted into his body. The heartbeat displayed by the electrocardiograph next to him is very weak, and life is like a candle that may dissipate at any time. The old witch took the lead and touched her head, from top to bottom, until she touched her abdomen, then she stopped and retreated, shaking her head slightly. Obviously there was nothing she could do. But Sigong Yunan asked slightly unwillingly. Miko-sama, can you help me? It's so difficult. The essence of flesh and blood is gone from 10 to 78 times, and most of the life force is lost. Even if the gods come down to earth, there is no way to save it. The old witch said with a sigh. It was obvious that the damage was so severe that he could not survive for long, as his entire body was almost hollowed out. Shinomiya Yunan couldn't help but retreat after hearing these words, and almost fell. Hayasaka I on the side quickly supported him, but tears kept flowing in his eyes. In Hayasaka's love, he had already regarded Shinomiya Kagaya as his sister, but he did not expect that his sister would soon pass away. At this time, Sigong Yunan came back to his senses, looked at Nangong, and spoke immediately. My lord, please take a look and see if my little girl can still be saved. Next to her, Yotsuya Miko, Kazuo, and Uegahama Yui also looked at Nangong with tears in their eyes. They felt that this father was too pitiful. He had just rescued his daughter from an evil spirit, only to die again, which made them feel very uncomfortable. Nangong had no choice but to walk to the hospital bed and look at Kagaya Shinomiya at this time. She was not as beautiful as she was in the anime in her previous life. But as long as she is cured and taken as a family member, it will not be a loss. He retreated to Sigong Yunan and said, I can save people, but the cost of saving people is a bit high. Nangong hasn't finished speaking yet. As long as I can do it, the price is fine. As long as I can save the person, please don't take it into consideration. Saying this, Shinomiya Yunan lowered his head and bowed at a 90-degree angle. Listen to me, the price is that she will be bound to me for the rest of her life, and I will accept her as my disciple. After saying this, Nangong looked at Sigong Yunan. How about it? Once you use my method, there is no room for maneuver. Nangong is just waiting for Sigong Yunan's reply. Sigong Yunan, looking at her daughter whose life is so fragile and could die at any time, always thinks of the woman she loves deeply and the only child she has left. Please, sir, cast a spell to save the little girl. Nangong nodded. When he came to the hospital bed, 6 chains stretched out from his back, he pinched the Yanling mudra with both hands, and the spiritual power went into his throat and spit out from his mouth. Life flourishes. Following the forward exit, white ripples came from the mouth and swept towards Shinomiya Kagaya. Shinomiya Kagaya's bony cheeks began to turn rosy, and the organs in her body began to have erections and powerful movements. The medical equipment nearby showed that the heartbeat returned to normal levels. The moment Shinomiya Kagaya returned to normal, one of the 6 chains from Nangong Yang's back extended out and inserted into Shinomiya Kagaya's heart. That's right, Nangong Yang wants to turn Shinomiya Kagaya into a dependent, and with the help of an ability of the dependent, he can completely digest the food he eats into vitality to replenish himself. Otherwise, given the current situation, even if one can temporarily restore normal life functions through the art of speech and spirit, one will still die after a while. Only by becoming a dependent, using the time period to temporarily restore normal functions, using full digestion ability, and eating like crazy to restore one's own vitality, can one possibly survive. Seeing Kagaya Shinomiya, who was already changing her family members, she called Shinomiya Anon next to her. Prepare a large amount of meat. I will forcefully wake up your daughter in an hour. Your daughter will need to eat a large amount of meat to restore her vitality. Prepare at least 100 adult male portions of meat. Shinomiya Yanan looked horrified when he heard this. The pile of meat that was enough for 100 adult men was taller than a person. Hurry up and get ready. Otherwise, how do you think her vitality will be restored and how the consumed flesh and blood on her body will be restored? Hearing this, Shinomiya Anan quickly asked Hayasaka Ai to prepare meat. At the same time, he looked at the medical machine next to him. Junkang's physiological functions were displayed on it, and he felt happy that he was finally saved. During this hour, Nangong Yang and Shinomiya Yanan talked about Shinomiya Kagaya's future arrangements. At the same time, we also talked about the remuneration for this treatment and the promise made by the Shinomiya family. That is to keep catching ferocious beasts for Nangong Yang. There are a few wild animals in the wilds of this world. They have been hunting for food all year round, and they have unknowingly condensed their energy and blood and become ferocious beasts. Most of the ferocious beasts are larger than ordinary beasts, with a sense of ferocity and inhuman strength, but their flesh and blood has huge energy and they are the favorite food of martial artists. Shinagong Yanan agreed, but also said that ferocious beasts are difficult to catch, and there is no way to capture powerful ferocious beasts but can only capture some less powerful ones. And the time of capture is uncertain. After all, ferocious beasts are not that easy to find. Once captured, they will be sent to a special warehouse, and Nangong Yang will pick them up himself. As for the old Miko, seeing that she had nothing to do, she said goodbye to Shinomiya Yanan. He left with a group of little witches. As for Yotsuya Miko and Uegahama Yui, they have no objection to Nangong Yang accepting another dependent this time. After all, they are saving people. An hour passed by unconsciously. The chain connected to Sigong Weiyu completely disappeared and turned into an invisible link. At the same time, more than a dozen dining carts were pushed into the room, and all kinds of expensive steaks were placed on the dining carts. Nangong Yang saw that everything was ready, so he used the art of speaking in spirit to wake up Kagaya Shinomiya. Shinomiya Kagaya was having an extremely long nightmare in her deep sleep. A group of ghosts were constantly chasing and biting her. Every time she was bitten, she felt very tired. But suddenly a ray of light came in, making me feel particularly warm, and there was one less ghost chasing me. But the light also disappeared, and the ghosts chased and bit him again. Shinomiya Kagaya felt so tired and desperate. Finally, when he was about to give up, the group of ghosts chasing him suddenly disappeared, and not long after, he felt a surge of energy entering his body. My body suddenly felt less tired and was as energetic as when I fell asleep. At the same time, there was a sharp pain in his chest, but not long after the sharp pain, a stream of heat continued to spread throughout his body, making himself extremely comfortable. At the same time, there seems to be a certain figure in my heart, and when I see that figure, I feel extremely at ease. Did he save himself from being bitten by ghosts again? Is it like the scene in the comics where the male protagonist rescues the female protagonist? Suddenly a gentle voice came from the darkness, and the voice listened. Just like that figure, it makes people feel very reassured. Wake up, Kagaya. Who knows, the sound completely spread in the darkness. The dark dream was completely shattered. After Shinomiya Kagaya opened her eyes, she saw a handsome boy wearing black-rimmed glasses, a school uniform, and short black hair. It was him. He was the one who saved himself in the dream, but shouldn't he be more handsome? Especially those eyes that can fascinate all things. Nangong Yang looked at Kagaya Shinomiya, who was stunned, and waved his hand in front of him, but there was no response. It's broken. Is this crazy? Next to her, Hayasaka Ai cried with joy and hugged Shinomiya Kagaya. Only then did Shinomiya Kagaya completely come back to his senses. Quickly comfort Hayasaka Ai, and Kagaya Shinomiya understood in comfort what had happened to her. Nangong Yang looked at Shinomiya Kagaya, who was completely fine, and then he breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that he was stupid. He retreated to Sigong Yunan and looked at the old man, who turned his back and secretly wiped his tears. After wiping his tears, he turned back with a cold face. This old guy is so arrogant. Even though he is so worried, he doesn't come to see him. This old guy is so arrogant. Even though he is so worried, he doesn't come to see him. At this time, Shinomiya Kagaya, after comforting Hayasaka Ai, raised her arm and looked at the dryness of the palm like a branch. I felt panicked in my heart, but fortunately Hayasaka Ai had said it just now. Master Nangong tried to recover a little after finishing the prepared meat. Turning to look at his father, Sigong Yanan, he still looked cold. Wasn't there any fluctuation in his heart towards him? But I heard Sigong Yanan say to him, "Let's finish the prepared meat and recover first. We can talk about anything after we recover." Shinomiya Kagaya heard the concern for her from her father's words. He also smiled, but this smile was a bit ugly. Nangong Yang, Yatsuya Miko, and Uegahama Yui just went to the corner of the room to sit and chat. Shinomiya Kagaya glanced at Nangong Yang and the others, then started eating Hayasaka Ai, cutting the steak and feeding it to her mouth. Just the thought of eating 100 adult male portions of meat made my teeth sore, but it was all worth it to recover. As Shinomiya Kagaya started to eat the first steak, she felt warm in her stomach, and she could clearly feel that the food was being digested rapidly. Asked Hayasaka Ai next to him. "Do you need a break, miss?" "It's fine without me. My stomach feels comfortable. Continue." Shinomiya Kagaya began to feel that after the food was digested in her stomach, it turned into an inexplicable force that was restoring herself and slowly getting rid of her weakness. Hearing what Shinomiya Kagaya said, Hayasaka Ai was a little surprised, because the steak she cut was an extra large size, and an adult man could definitely eat a portion. "But listen," Shinomiya Kagaya said to continue, so he didn't care about these unscientific questions. After all, what happened today was so unscientific. Just like this, with Hayasaka Ai constantly feeding her steak, after eating the 10th portion, she started to be able to cut the steak and eat it by herself. It can be clearly seen from the face that some fleshiness has been restored. After eating the 30th portion, the skin on her body began to turn red, and Shinomiya Kagaya began to feel as if she was in a sauna and felt extremely comfortable. After eating 60 servings, the body surface temperature reached 40, the red skin began to sweat and smoke, and the missing flesh and blood on the body had been replaced. At this time, the whole person looks like a steamed red prawn, and on the way to replenishing the flesh and blood, the body becomes stronger, but I haven't noticed it yet. When I finished eating the 100th serving, a wave of heat was constantly radiating from my whole body, and all the functional organs in my body were extremely active and powerful. Moreover, Shinomiya Kagaya can clearly feel that her power has been greatly improved, but it is not clear how much it has been improved. Moreover, the clothes on his body were completely soaked, and his whole figure looked like he had come out of the water. Fortunately, the clothes he wore were not exposed because of the wetness. Nangong Yang, sitting on the other side, could feel the vitality feedback from the Insect King's contract from the moment Kagaya Shinomiya started eating steak. As Shinomiya Kagaya eats more and more, she can feel more and more vitality being fed back to her, and her physical fitness has improved. My current physical fitness is at least better than before, nearly double. It seems that I underestimated it. The Insect King contract gives the contractor the ability to completely digest. Because Uegahama Yui and Yatsuya Miko's usual meals, the little bit of vitality they fed back felt useless. Unexpectedly, Shinomiya Kagaya's big meal this time could actually bring such great benefits to herself. Everyone in the room was stunned and their jaws almost dropped to the floor. Although I heard Nangong Yang say at first that he needed to eat 100 portions of meat for an adult male, he never thought he would eat it so fast and in such a hurry. It was only an hour and a half. The digestion ability is so exaggerated, and the expressiveness is so terrifying. Steam is coming out of the body, and the flesh and blood of the whole person is filled back quickly like a balloon being blown up. No one would believe this unless they saw it with their own eyes. Even those who originally had this ability, Yotsuya Miko and Uegahama Yui, never thought that the ability to completely digest could be so powerful. It made Nangong Yang a little envious. His dependents could possess this ability of complete digestion, but he could only wait for them to feed back their vitality after digestion. With such a speech in Versailles, I am really not afraid that one day justice will be brought down from heaven. Sigong Yanan, who quickly came to his senses because of the experience, came to Nangong Yang and asked, "Master Nangong, you see that my little girl is completely healed now." Nangong Yang sensed the status of Shinomiya Kagaya through the Insect King contract, and then said, "I have completely recovered. I am now recovering from a serious illness. I just need to rest at home for a few days. But we will still need to replenish high-energy foods frequently in the future. The missing flesh and blood essence will be replenished, but the missing lifespan will not be replenished as quickly." Sigong Yanan replied immediately, "I will pay more attention to this aspect." Suddenly Nangong Yang seemed to have thought of something. "One thing I want to remind you is that it is not an accident that Kagaya is hosted by an evil spirit this time, but a spiritual master is behind it. After all, the evil spirit today actually knew how to trick the tiger away from the mountain and deceive the divine power sent down by Amaterasu. It is obviously quite capable. But you don't have to worry about this. The spirit control master probably won't attack you again in the short term. After all, he has to find out our true and false intentions before he attacks again. And I also promised to accept Kagaya as my disciple. She now has my power in her body. If something happens, that power will keep her safe. But when Kagaya is completely recovered, you can transfer her to our school so that I can teach her more conveniently." Sigong Yanan next to him quickly bowed after hearing this, and his attitude became more respectful. "Okay, Mr. Nangong, fortunately I have your help. Without you, our Sigong family would have been in trouble. You dare to take action against our Shinomiya family members. I'm afraid that if something happens to Kagaya and he learns that we have no power to resist, he will take action against the rest of us." Speaking of this, Sigong Yanan glanced at the clock hanging in the room. It was almost 9 o'clock, and hurriedly came to Nangong Yang. "Mr. Nangong, it's almost 9 o'clock in the evening. You might as well have a meal here before leaving." Listening to Shinomiya Yanan, what he said made sense. After all, today because of a commission, I specifically told Miko and Yui to tell their family that they might not go back that early today. So there's no need to worry about Miko and Yui's family asking questions. Immediately, Shinigong Yanan led the way, and the three of them went to a special restaurant to have a meal. As for Shinomiya Kagaya, she was resting in her room, with Hayasaka Ai accompanying her. Curious about what the awakening stand of Kagaya Shinomiya is. It's better to wait until he recovers completely before asking. In this way, after the three of them had dinner at the Siganong family, they took the Siganong family's special car and were sent home one by one, and finally they were sent to Nangong Yang's office. Originally, Sigong Yanan wanted to keep the three of them at home for the night, but all three of them refused. They had no choice but to ask the driver to send Nangong Yang and the others back. After Nangong Yang returned to the office, he quickly went to the second floor and took a shower to wash away the fatigue of the day. After giving himself a spiritual purification, he fell asleep directly. Too much happened today, especially Yotsuya Miko and Uegahama Yui. What happened today had the biggest impact on the two of them. It was the first time they saw a dead person, and it was still piles of broken limbs. You can imagine how powerful the impact is. Fortunately, the almighty Nangong Jun provides them with warm comfort. This did not cause any psychological shadow. The next morning, Nangong Yang returned to class as usual, and Uegahama Yui, who was next to Nangong Yang, said hello as usual. "Ah, hello, Nangong-kun, good morning." "Good morning, Tuanzi." "Tuanzi, Golden Week is coming soon, What activities do you have then? Nangong Yang dug through the novel hidden in his school bag and put it on the table. While reading the novel, I talked to Yuigahama Yui. Is it Golden Week? I don't know. Maybe I'll stay at home. If there's a pet exhibition, I might take Saber with me. Nangong Yang was a little strange, looking at Yuigahama Yui. You just got the reward for this commission. Don't you plan to go out and be cool with 30 million yen? When leaving yesterday, he asked Shinomiya Anon to divide the 100 million yen in the black card he had given before into 2 portions of 30 million yen, giving them to Yatsuya Miko and Yuigahama Yui. Now both of them have a black card. Don't you plan to use your woman's nature and swipe your credit card to buy and buy? Don't you plan to use your woman's nature and swipe your credit card to buy and buy? Hearing what Nangong Yang said, Yuigahama Yui felt embarrassed. The main reason is that I got so much money at once and I don't know what to buy. And 30 million yen is really too much, and I don't dare to give it to my family, so haha. Nangong Yang heard what Yui said and knew what was going on. I was a little overwhelmed after getting so much money at once, so I just let it sit at home and gather dust. Then just save it. If it is useful in the future, you can use it at any time. Ding dong ding dong. Suddenly the school bell rang. It didn't take long for the bell to ring. Today, Hiratsuka Shizu, still wearing a white coat, entered the classroom with textbooks in hand. Nangong Yang and Yuigahama Yui quickly returned to their seats and sat down. Nangong Yang took the opportunity to put the novel he was reading just now in the drawer. But the moment Hiratsuka Shizu entered the classroom, her eyes were fixed on Nangong Yang. This made Nangong Yang a little confused. He was caught by Jing Ki again. The issue is, how did he offend Jing Ki? After Shizuka Hiratsuka looked at Nangong Yang for a while, he opened the Mandarin textbook in his hand and started class. Only then did Nangong Yang breathe a sigh of relief. I just don't understand, why should I breathe a sigh of relief? The class time passed very quickly while Nangong Yang was fishing. But at the end of class, Jing Ki called her to the teacher's office again. In the teacher's office, Hiratsuka was sitting quietly on the armchair, with his legs crossed and a cigarette in his hand, smoking. Tell me, kid, have you forgotten what you promised me? Hiratsuka took a puff of cigarette and said calmly to Nangong Yang. Although his tone was calm, Nangong Yang could hear some traces of anger. This was a sign before the storm came. The decayed brain is running rapidly, looking for bits and pieces of information from the past. Suddenly a piece of information flashed through my mind. Nangong Yang is enlightened. Last week, I had promised to join one of the 2 clubs, the Service Club and the Classical Literature Club. As a result, I haven't joined one of them yet. I wanted to visit the 2 societies before and see which one was better. As a result, the incident of puberty syndrome occurred in Yuigahama Yui. I forgot about this matter again. No wonder Jing Ki started to get angry. This gave me more than a week, but I was surprised that I didn't join any clubs. Everyone is going to be angry. If it were an ordinary teacher, he would have started scolding. She is so quiet and cute, although her temper is a bit explosive. But the teacher's ethics are still there, at least he makes you understand what's going on and doesn't say it immediately. Realizing that it was his fault, Nangong Yang quickly bent down and apologized. Teacher Hiratsuka, I understand my mistake. Because my office has received commissions in the past 2 days, I forgot about it for a while. Nangong Yang tugged at the firm's banner again. But it was still not safe enough, so he immediately said again. Actually, I've already decided which club I want to join, and it's the Classics Club. I'm going to join in and cultivate my sentiments. Nangong Yang's sudden apology caught Hiratsuka Shizu off guard. Before he even started to get angry, Nangong Yang started to apologize. For a moment, Shizuka Hiratsuka didn't know how to scold this brat. The words he wanted to say were on his lips, but they were stuck in his throat. He didn't know how to say them, and he seemed extremely uncomfortable. Nangong Yang looked at Hiratsuka Shizuka and wanted to say something, but couldn't say it with an ugly expression. I also know that this can be regarded as stabilizing Jing Ki. In the end, Hiratsuka Shizuka didn't have an attack and just said in a serious tone. You have to remember what you said this time, and don't delay. Join the club for me today, and I will receive the report of joining the club tomorrow. Otherwise you understand. After speaking, Shizuka Hiratsuka raised her white fist and waved it twice in the air. The scary thing is that even with these two swings, there was a sonic boom and a fist wind. This sudden movement shocked the teachers who were still watching the show. Everyone put their heads back on their desks, not daring to look any further, wiping their sweat and pretending to be doing something. Nandong Yang couldn't help but sweat broke out on his forehead. Oh my god, Shizuka Hiratsuka, Harmono's character in this world, is actually a martial artist. And just these two fist pumps, I'm afraid it's not weak. If Hiratsuka Shizuka hit him twice at close range, it would definitely be tragic. Nandong Yang stretched out his hand and wiped his head, sweating immediately. Okay, Teacher Jing, I will definitely join the club today. Suddenly Hiratsuka Shizu thought of something, pulled Nandong Yang to the rest area of the teacher's office and said, "What happened to your eyes when you saw them last time?" Eyes. Nandong Yang suddenly remembered that he had specifically shown Hiratsuka Shizu the eyes of the starry sky before. Originally, I just wanted to tease Shizuka Hiratsuka. Nandong Yang thought about the excuse and said, "This is my awakened superpower, and I also gave it a cool name, Eyes of the Starry Sky." What's wrong, teacher, do you want to arrest me to study slices? Nandong Yang said this and pretended to shake his body. Hearing this, Shizuka Hiratsuka looked very serious. Don't use your abilities often in front of others in the future. With your awakened superpower, someone will really arrest you and study it in slices. Hearing this, Nandong Yang raised his eyebrows. There is actually a worldview of superpowers in this world. Which anime is this? But there are too many superpower anime that come to mind, and I don't have much to think about. Although his awakened eyes are not superpowers, he still responded. Okay, Teacher Jing, I will never use my superpowers in front of others. Hearing this, Hiratsuka Shizu nodded with satisfaction. If you encounter anything that cannot be solved in the future, be sure to inform me or call me. As for the phone call, I asked you to record it on the first day of school. Do you have a record? Nandong Yang nodded. But if you want to know more about superpowers, just ask. Teacher, what did you mean by grabbing and slicing it for study? You don't have to worry about it, just call me if you need anything. Saying this, Hiratsuka Shizu had already stood up and returned to his desk. Seeing this, Nandong Yang knew that nothing could be asked, so he went back to the classroom directly. Afternoon club activity time, Nandong Yang said hello to Yatsuya Miko. He said that he must join the club today. Otherwise, you may be beaten by your class teacher. As for after school, there was no way to continue teaching Yatsuya Miko the knowledge of being a spirit slayer. There is no need to worry. Through the Insect King contract, some of the knowledge of the exorcist will be passed on to Yatsuya Miko first. Learn what you don't know and communicate and teach through line in the evening. Yatsuya Miko had no objection to this, so he would be free to go shopping with Yuri Kawaka in the afternoon. After all, I haven't gone shopping with Lily Schwanwa for a while. This is not okay. What if the relationship fades? Also, the 30 million yen remuneration I received is still waiting for me to buy it. Thinking of this, Yatsuya Miko became excited. He immediately waved to Nandong Yang and went to find Lily Schwanwa. As for Uegahama Yui, she was very happy to hear that she was going to join the club. Although we are not joining the service club, we can walk together and go home together after the club is over. Nandong Yang walked towards the classical literature in the club area based on his last memory. As for why Nandong Yang chose to join the department of classical literature, that's because he doesn't have any relationship with the heroine Chetaru yet. After all, she is a heroine, and she must be the chosen target of her family. Yukino has a relationship like Uegahama Yui, so he can get on the line and see if there is any chance to take her as his family. Yurikawa Hana has the same relationship as Yatsuya Miko, and the same principle applies. Chetaru, there is no relationship here, there is no reasonable reason to go over to communicate or strike up a conversation. Nandong Yang came to the classical literature department and looked through the window of the activity club. I saw a beautiful girl sitting inside, reading a book. The girl has long, straight black hair that falls over her shoulders. The eyes looking at the book are like purple gems flashing continuously, with inexplicable vitality. Coupled with her beautiful appearance and tender white skin, it can only be said that she is worthy of being a rich lady. There is an inexplicable aura of nobility all over his body. Perhaps it was because the girl inside noticed Nangong Yang outside the window. He immediately put down the book in his hand and came to the door of the club. After opening the door of the club, he stuck his head out and said to Nangong Yang, "Hello, classmate, are you here to join the classical literature department?" "Hello, classmate, are you here to join the classical literature department?" Nangendran looked at the girl in front of him who poked her head at the door. Those purple eyes exuded sparkling eyes, which felt like they wanted to be punched. Maybe it will make this beautiful girl filled with curiosity cry for a long time. Perhaps it was Nangong Yang's imagination that was sensed by the girl in front of him. I saw the girl Chetaru shaking her body intelligently. Hurrying, he shrank back into the door again, slammed the door, and closed it again. I'm just speculating on this and haven't implemented it yet. This can all be perceived as malicious and avoided. He is a good seedling as a dependent. Nangong Yang has an evil smile, like a big bad wolf discovering a little sheep. He immediately came to the entrance of the classical literature department and knocked on the door unhurriedly. Said at the same time, "Hello, classmate, I was recommended by my teacher to join the club. Open it quickly and let me in." Chetaru originally saw someone standing at the window of the club. I went over and opened the door and asked directly if I wanted to join my club. In the end, the man just glanced at me and alerted me. Goosebumps were rising all over my body, so I quickly followed my instinct, stepped back, and closed the door. At this time, there was a knock on the door and the sound of words. "Hello, classmate, I was recommended by my teacher to join the club. Open it quickly and let me in." Hearing these words, Chetaru felt a chill. At the same time, the endless curiosity in my heart was stimulated again. Who is he? Why do you feel like a bad guy? Why does he feel like a bad guy? I'm curious, I'm really curious, I'm so curious. In the end, Chetaru couldn't restrain her curiosity. He opened the door and let in the devil who would bind him for the rest of his life. Nangong Yang looked at Chetaru who had opened the door but was looking straight at him. He said with a smile, "This is the first time we meet. My name is Nangong Yang. You can just call me Nangong." Nangong Yang said this and took off the black-rimmed glasses on his face, revealing those starry sky eyes that are full of charm and can make people sink. As for Shizuka Hiratsuka, who just told me this morning, you can't use your superpowers at will. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not a superpower, it's a talent. As Nangong Yang takes off his glasses, Chetaru, who was opposite, was curious as to why the other party took off his glasses when introducing himself. When he met Nangong Yang's eyes, he was immediately attracted by the starry sky and universe in his eyes. Are these still eyes that humans can have? Is it natural? As he continued to sink, Chetaru's unparalleled curiosity prompted him to keep thinking. Not completely sunk, Nangong Yang looked at Chetaru, who was silent, and smiled. Before he could wait, Nangong Yang stepped forward to do something. Chetaru has completely woken up. Suddenly he jumped to Nangong Yang's side, bent down and looked into the other person's eyes. There is no longer any sign of sinking. "Hello, Nangong-kun, my name is Chetaru, you can just call me Eru. I'm curious about you." Nangong Yang is a little different. Chetaru wakes up too quickly. No one is around, wake her up. And what kind of brain circuit is this? Just after introducing yourself, I want to say, I am very curious about you. Those who didn't know thought they were confessing to themselves. Okay, Eru, can I join the club now? Nangong Yang ignored the latter sentence and nodded in reply. Chetaru didn't care that she was suddenly called so intimate by an outsider. Perhaps, it's not that she doesn't care, but that she doesn't mind that the person in front of her calls her so intimately. After all, this is the object of my super curiosity. But the sentence he just said, "I'm very curious about you," seemed a bit rude. It's so rude. I forgot my etiquette for a moment. Come in now. Immediately, Chetaru pulled Nangong Yang into the club and closed the door. The two came to the club and sat down on two stools at the desk. Chetaru took out the form to join the club from her bag. Nangong-kun, just fill in the information on this form. Saying this, Chetaru pushed both the paper and pen to Nangong Yang. During this process, keep looking at Nangong Yang's eyes. This made Nangong people feel strange. You said you were not sinking. She kept looking into Nangong Yang's eyes again. You could say she was lost, but she was not completely stunned or addicted. Nangong Yang quickly filled in all the required information in the form. He returned the paper and pen, and Chetaru did not read the contents of the form. Finally, I couldn't help my curiosity and asked, Nangong Jun, what's wrong with your eyes? It seems like you can see the stars. Is it natural? Also, when I saw your eyes just now, you felt like you were being sucked in. Can you explain it? And, just when Chetaru wanted to continue asking the curious questions in her heart one by one, Nangong Yang interrupted directly. If Chetaru continues to talk, she will feel like her head is getting bigger. Stop. There are too many questions, and I believe in equal exchange. So how about I answer a question for you and you answer a question for me? Chetaru was not angry at being interrupted. On the contrary, I heard Nangong Yang's suggestion and gave it affirmation. She still doesn't know that she has fallen into a trap, just like a bug falling into a spider's web. Blinking his purple eyes, he asked the first question. This is also the question I most want to know. Nangong Jun, what's going on with your eyes? After all, just one look at it makes you feel addicted. I feel like I've been confused. As for Chetaru's problem, he had already considered it when he wanted to take off his glasses. This is what happened after I woke up some time ago. As for why this is happening, I don't know. Nangong Yang never drafts lies. Chetaru was a little disappointed that she couldn't hear what she wanted to hear from Nangong Yang, but she didn't continue to ask. After all, it was agreed that each person would have one question. Tell me, Mr. Nangong, what questions do you want to ask me? Chetaru's eyes sparkled as he said this, and he was very curious, what kind of questions would Nangong Yang ask? Just like ordinary boys, they ask for their measurements. Or ask yourself other intimate questions. No. Nangong Yang said calmly. There is no expression on his face. This is how Nangong Yang came up with the answer to Chetaru's endless curious questions. No. Chetaru repeated. No. Nangong Yang repeats the same sentence. Chetaru refused to give up and said tentatively, won't you ask me my measurements? As Chetaru said this, her cheeks started to feel hot. But in order to relieve his curiosity, he asked about Nangong Yang's secret. All efforts are valuable and are equivalent exchanges. Chetaru comforts herself so much. Do not ask. Nangong Yang's answer is still so concise. This leaves Chetaru in trouble. Nangong Yang looked at the sad expression on Chetaru's face and smiled. Little boy, if I don't discipline you, you won't be able to restrain yourself. There are a lot of questions at the beginning. Who is interested in answering them slowly? Looking at Chetaru, the whole person shivered. Then he coughed lightly and said, I suddenly thought of a question that I just wanted to ask you. Chetaru, this person became energetic after hearing this. You tell me, I'll listen, and I'll definitely tell you what I know. With his purple eyes wide open, he curiously waited for Nangong Yang's question. Nangong Yang also told the questions he had thought about. I came to the classical literature department during club activities last week. I originally wanted to visit and see if I wanted to join, but I didn't see anyone. So what were you doing then? Chetaru thought about it for a moment. She was not in the activity room last week. What was she doing that day? What suddenly comes to mind? Said immediately, looking for the invisible bunny girl senpai. Nangong Yang heard what Chetaru said. A little surprised. Invisible bunny girl senpai, are you sure? Have you found it? What is the name of invisible bunny girl senpai? Apparently Nangong Yang was attracted by the information Chetaru said. Chetaru looked at Nangong Yang and was also interested in this issue, so she immediately explained. This is an urban legend that has been circulating in school for some time. This is an urban legend that has been circulating in school for some time. Because every once in a while, some students will tell others that they saw a bunny girl senior somewhere in the school. And not one student said that. It's just strange that when these students see the bunny girl senior, they all don't remember her face. I don't even know her name. I only vaguely know that he is a sophomore. Speaking of this, Chetaru looked excited and had deep curiosity in her eyes. So, last week I was out looking for the invisible bunny girl senpai. It's too mysterious. It's a pity that I can't find it. If I find it, I must ask carefully. Saying this, Chetaru sighed. Nangong Yang, who was listening, already knew what was going on. This is my Sakurajima in Young Pig Head. It's been so long since I've been in Sobu High School that I didn't notice it. I'm really derelict in my duty. Now my senpai has obviously entered puberty syndrome, and it has not been short. But why didn't I encounter it? I'm a spiritualist, so I can't be so affected that I can't even see it. Nangong Yang is still thinking. Chetaru, who was next to him, saw Nangong Yang deep in thought and stopped talking. Forget it, when you have time, look for it in school. When the time comes, in the posture of a hero saving the beauty, he will be included in his family. Thinking like this, Nangong Yang smiled. Chetaru, who was next to him, looked at Nangong Yang's smile and felt inexplicably evil. I unconsciously moved a little further away. But seeing Nangong Yang come to his senses, he asked the question he wanted to ask again. Nangong Jun, your eyes are so beautiful, why can't you feel them after wearing glasses? I refused to answer. Why, don't you answer one question per person? Chetaru suddenly became anxious and asked quickly. Nangong Yang said with a smile, stood up and was about to leave. Because I don't have any more questions to ask later. And just now you asked me a question, and I asked you a question, so it's even. I came to join the club today, and I successfully joined the club, so I have to leave. Hey, don't leave in a hurry, Nangong-kun, I still have many questions. Why don't we talk again? Saying this, Chetaru reached out and grabbed the corner of Nangong Yang's clothes. And he opened his big purple watery eyes, showing a pitiful look. At that moment, Nangong Yang almost softened his heart. But no, today's contact was enough to leave a deep impression. It would be too much if she continued to interact with him, and she could not satisfy her curiosity all the time. You have to hang it all the time. Every time at this time, Nangong Yang feels that his heart is really dirty. That's not okay. I have my own things to do. Let's do this. Let's add a line first. If I have any questions to ask you then, how about it also facilitates communication? Saying this, Nangong Yang took out his mobile phone from his pocket and shook it. Chetaru looked at Nangong Yang and then at her phone, and said helplessly. Okay, let's add the line on the phone. If you have any questions in the future, remember to ask me. Chetaru could only temporarily suppress her curiosity and added Nangong Yang's line. Nangong Yang saw that Chetaru had added line to her mobile phone. He waved to him, picked up his shoulder bag and left. Chetaru, who was behind him, looked at the back of Nangong Yang as he left. Make up your mind to dig out all your secrets sooner or later. The ignorant girl made a vow that would affect her life. Nangong Yang, who left the Department of Classical Literature, did not leave the school immediately. Instead, he turned around in the club area and walked towards Yukino's serving steps. Not long after, Nangong Yang came to the door of the service department. Hearing the conversation between two people inside, he just opened the door without knocking. Those who were talking in the club were Yukino and Uegahama Yui. I was shocked when the club door suddenly opened. Obviously the two of them were very engaged in chatting. Yukino was slightly relieved when she saw that it was Nangong Yang who came in. What followed was a frightened rage. Classmate Nangong, haven't your family taught you what politeness is and what knocking on the door is? At this time, Yukino's tone of voice was a little aggressive. Obviously he was very angry. In response, Nangong Yang just smiled and said casually, knock on the door, I'll do it next time, I'll do it next time. Yukino looked at Nangong Yang with such a perfunctory tone. I couldn't help but want to speak again. But Uegahama Yui next to her grabbed her clothes. Yukino. Don't be angry, Yukino. Don't be angry. Nangong-kun has already said that he will knock on the door next time. Forget it. Yukino looked at Yui, who was pleading for Nangong, and took back the venomous words she just wanted to say. Just glared at Nangong and said, "If you don't go back and open your office to accept commissions, what are you doing here?" Nangong raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Yukino knew that she had accepted the commission. Turning around to look at Yui next to her. When Yui saw Nangong looking at her, she lowered her head with guilt. Does Yukino know what happened yesterday? But Nangong is not here. If you know it, you will know it. After all, saving people is a great and honorable thing. Why can't I come here? I'm here to go back together after the Tuanzi club is over. With that said, Nangong came to the back and moved a stool, and sat down next to Yui. Yukino looked at Nangong, completely treating her as a club minister as a decoration. This made Yukino so angry that she couldn't help but want to hit someone. But thinking about Nangong's special status, even though he knows Aikido, he really can't beat him. Thinking of this, Yukino's poisonous tongue couldn't help but start. But at this time Nangong suddenly smiled, looked at Yukino and said, "Yukishita-san, what were you and Dango chatting about just now? Why don't you come and listen and let me understand?" This made Yukiko and Yukino, who wanted to be venomous, suddenly mute. Regarding yesterday's commission, I only found out about it when I tricked Yui in the club just now. It's like snooping into other people's privacy without their consent, so it's a bit unreasonable and looks guilty. In fact, these are indifferent to Nangong. It can only be said that Yukino has too high a moral bottom line for herself. Yukino said nothing. Nangong didn't care and said again, "Yukoshita-san, would you like to become my vassal? Then you will also gain extraordinary abilities." This time Nangong was very straightforward, testing Yukinoshita's attitude. When Yukino heard this, she was a little moved, but this move was quickly suppressed. "That's no need. If becoming your dependent means being exposed to such a dangerous commission, then forget it." As soon as Yukino finished speaking, she realized that she had spilled the beans. But Nangong just winked at him and continued, "This is just an accident. The world is so big, there are always some accidents, and accidents don't happen often. What's there to worry about? After possessing superpowers, you stand above ordinary people and can easily accomplish things that many people cannot." Hearing this, Yukino thought of her sister Yukinoshita Hirano. After possessing extraordinary abilities, can I easily surpass my sister? Thinking of this, Yukino, the scales in her heart began to tilt. Yui next to her saw Nangong being so bold. He started to seduce Yukino in front of him, his face bulged with anger, and he let out a cold snort. This cold snort woke up Yukino, who was immersed in ideological struggle. Yukino immediately replied with a cold face, "I appreciate your kindness. If I am bound to you for life, then forget it." Okay, just kidding. Looking at this situation, Nangong knew that there would be no chance of success today. And today's exchange has already made Yukino's heart flutter. It's like leaving the seeds behind, just waiting for the germination and fruiting in the future. The top priority is to coax Yui next to her. He stood up immediately and said, "Then Yukinoshita-san, I will take the dumplings back first." After saying that, he pulled up Yui, who was still sulking next to him. At the same time, use the Insect King contract to spread the word. This morning, the milk tea shop near the school offered a couple's cup set. "Let's go and drink it together." Single quote. Sure enough, this method is the best for old Neptune. Yui calmed down a little when she heard the words coming from her, and got up and prepared to leave together. At the same time, he waved his hand to Yukino and said with a smile, "Yukino-chan, I'll see you tomorrow." Time flies by like a flash. It's been a week since the Shinomiya family's commission. It's the golden week of Sakura country. All students and teachers are on vacation, only the social animals are still working. At this time, Nangong was lying on the sofa in the office and reading a novel. He looked completely idle and panicked. Suddenly, the mobile phone placed on the table sounded a chat reminder. Nangong glanced at the smartphone on the table. Shown above. Jonzi. Don't stay at home all the time during Golden Week, go out and go shopping. Mionzi. Picture. The picture showed Yatsugimiko and Yuri Kawaka eating crepes at a crepe cart stall on the snack street outside. Nangong. Wait for me to come here and take a seat. Mionzi. Location. Nangong. See you later. Nangong Yang immediately put aside the novel he was still reading. Start packing some things and leave. This boring Golden Week finally has something to do. Nangong Yang came to the stall located in the snack street. I saw Yatsuya Miko and Yuri Kawaka still eating crepes. Nangong Yang immediately approached the two of them with a smile on his face and patted them on the shoulders. Jonzi, Shalwa, I'll be here for at least half an hour. You two have been eating a crepe for so long and still haven't finished it. Hearing this, Yatsuya Miko looked a little surprised, and turned back to Nangong Yang and said, No, this is just my second one, and I've only had a few bites. But Shalwa ate a lot, a total of 8 crepes. 8 crepes. Nangong Yang was not surprised at all. After all, Lily Xuanhua is very edible, and she knew this. I just don't know why Jonzi is surprised. Lily Xuanhua next to her also turned around because of Nangong Yang's arrival and shouted in surprise. Nangong-kun, have a good lunch. I just heard Miko said that you also want to go out to play, so I specially prepared some crepes for you. Lily Xuanhua, who was shrinking like this, pushed a few crepes left on the table to Nangong Yang who was sitting aside. Nangong Yang looked at the crepes in front of him, they were all very sweet. Said immediately, just one is enough, you can eat the rest yourself. If you eat all these crepes, then why do you come to the snack street? Just eat a crepe. All right. Then Lily Chunhua left a crepe in front of Nangong Yang, and pulled the others back to eat in front of her. Nangong Yang ate the crepe in his hand and asked Yatsuya Miko. How long have you been out shopping at the snack street? I see that Shalwa looks very hungry. Are you visiting the snack street? Nangong Yang said this and looked at Baihei Xuanhua, eating what he was holding with concentration. Have you been hungry for a long time? Because Nangong Yang could see that the current Lily Xuanhua had no life energy consumed due to the erosion of evil spirits. Logically speaking, if life energy is not consumed, it is impossible to get hungry so quickly. The exposed life energy did not increase and fluctuate with eating, and seemed very stable. Next to her, Yatsugimiko looked at Yurikawa Hana, who was still concentrating on eating the crepe. Then he came close to Nangong Yang and whispered in Nangong Yang's ear. We have been shopping at the snack street since 9 o'clock in the morning. We originally wanted to shop for clothes first. But Shalwa suggested visiting the snack street first, so I had no choice but to come here first. But when we started the snack street, we would buy some food from the stalls we passed along the way. Speaking of this, Yatsuya Miko looked at Yuri Kawaka with a little worry. I didn't pay attention when I was eating. After all, I have complete digestion ability, but Shalwa doesn't. The two of us have been eating from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock now, and Shalwa still looks very hungry. I didn't see any evil spirits along the way, which caused a loss of life energy to Shalwa. How could he be so hungry all the time? Hearing this, Nangong Yang looked like he suddenly understood. One hand reached out to Yatsuya Miko's face, pinched the flesh on her cheek, and pulled outward. I dare you to be so kind, and you are willing to take me out when you are shopping with your best friend. It turns out that we encountered an abnormal situation. So I have become a tool. Nangong Yang said this, pinched Yatsuya Miko's hand, and began to shake it slightly as punishment. Nangong Yang couldn't bear it and dealt harshly to his woman. At this time, Yatsuya Miko made a scene. The girl held her heart in her hands, her eyes filled with tears, and she looked at Nangong Yang with a pitiful expression. This made Nangong Yang feel soft-hearted again, and the hand holding Yatsumiko's tender cheeks unconsciously let go. As Nangong Yang let go of his hand, Yatsuya Miko's pitiful expression immediately changed. With a happy expression on his face, he immediately hugged Nangong Yang's arm tightly and said coquettishly in a soft and cute tone. Nangong-kun is the best, how about you forgive me this time, and help me see what's going on with Shalwa. Apparently Yatsuya Miko has begun to find a way to handle Nangong Yang. The method of acting coquettishly and cutely that I found on the internet is my magic weapon to win. At this time, Nangong Yang felt the soft touch coming from his arm. And the soft and cute voice of Yatsuya Miko came to my ears. For a moment, the whole person felt a little erratic. Okay, I will forgive you this time. As for Shalwa, I will definitely take a look at what's going on. Although Nangong Yang is erratic, but she still has the rationality she should have. Lily Xuanhua, nothing will happen to her, after all, she is her favorite target. As for why you forgive Yotsuya Miko, there was never such a thing as being angry, it was just a little fun between the two of them. After Nangong Yang came to his senses, he looked next to Lily Xuanhua, who was still eating crepes. Asked Yotsuya Miko, who is still holding her arm next to her. When did Shalwa start to have such a big appetite? Do you have any impressions? Hearing this, Yotsuya Miko thought about it carefully. What was the difference between her previous contact with Yuri Kawaka? I don't know when this started, but when I asked Shalwa out today, she already had a huge appetite. That's why I was the first to visit the snack street, but I still haven't left the snack street yet. When it comes to going shopping to meet children, I feel speechless. How can I go shopping and linger at the food stalls all the time? Several stores have seen them eating from morning to now, and they are very shameless. Yeah, after hearing what Yotsuya Miko said, Nangong Yang had no clue. However, looking at Lily Kawaka, who was still eating crepes, she had already eaten the last crepe on the table. Nangong Yang immediately asked Yotsuya Miko to take Lily Xuanhua and leave here first, and not to eat yet. When Yotsuya met his son, he immediately took action and came to Yuri Kawaka's side. Shalwa, don't eat. Keep eating crepes. What's the point? Let's continue shopping. Nangong-jun has come out to play with us. Lily Xuanhua did not reply immediately, but quickly took the remaining crepe in her hand and finished it in several bites before saying, Okay, let's continue shopping and see what delicious food the next store has. Seeing that Yuri Kawaka still wanted to eat, Yotsugamiko immediately said again. Shalwa, we have eaten from morning to afternoon. It's time to go shopping outside the snack street, such as buying some nice clothes or jewelry. But now I want to eat something more. For example, the squid grilled by the restaurant next door is very good. Saying this, Yuri Kawaka licked the crepe crumbs stuck to her fingers. What Yuri Xuanhua said made Nangong Yang and Yotsuya Miko a little stunned. Nangong Yang even frowned. In Nangong Yang's view, Lily Xuanhua seemed to have lost her mind at this time and was always thinking about food. He looked at Yuri Kawaka, who was still arguing with Yotsuya Miko and wanted to continue eating. Nangong Yang came to the takoyaki shop next to her and ordered a full 10 portions. While Yotsugamiko and Yuri Kawaka were still arguing, Nangong Yang had already returned with takoyaki. No need to argue. I bought 10 takoyaki and we can eat them while shopping. As he spoke, Nangong Yang gave all the takoyaki he was holding to Lily Xuanhua. At this time, Janzi and Shalwa had escalated from their original conversation into a quarrel. But as Nangong Yang took out the takoyaki, Lily Xuanhua returned to her previous gentle appearance. Yotsuya Miko's defense has been broken a bit, and the friendship between us is not as good as a little takoyaki. Seeing Yotsuya Miko looking a little angry, Nangong Yang quickly stopped her and whispered in her ear. It may be that an abnormal phenomenon has affected Shalwa's character. Don't worry about it. Now we have to take Shalwa to eat while walking, to a place where no one is around. Restrict it again and see what happens. Restrict it again and see what happens. Okay. When Yotsuya saw his son, he immediately replied. I won't continue to be angry with Yuri Kawaka. Immediately, he pulled Yuri Xuanhua, who was starting to eat again, and walked out of the snack street. Nangong Yang followed the two of them and bought some food for his own lunch. Not long after, Yotsugamiko took Yuri Kawaka to the forest park not far from the snack street. At this time, Lily Xuanhua was sitting on a bench in the forest park, still eating takoyaki in her hand, and she had already eaten the last portion. Sitting on either side were Yotsuya Miko and Nangong Yang. After finishing the last portion of takoyaki, holding the takoyaki carton in his hand, Yurikawa Hana made a proposal. Let's find some more food. At this time, all Lily Xuanhua could think about was eating. Nangong Yang next to him has already seen Shalwa's mentality at this time. But I still asked, Shalwa, you've been eating for almost a day, do you still plan to continue eating? When speaking, deliberately integrate spiritual power into the words. Nangong Yang's words were like waking up someone in a dream. Shalwa only realized it at this time. How come I have become so greedy, and my food intake is already 10 times more than I usually eat? Thinking of this, Shalwa was a little confused. Shalwa, who was in a daze, unconsciously put the takoyaki carton in his hand to his mouth. Nangong Yang and Janzi. I felt confused after reading it. Shalwa, who was in a daze, put the paper box handed to his mouth directly into his mouth and started chewing. This startled Nangong Yang and Mionzi, and they hurried forward to stop them and pulled out the cardboard box that was stuffed into their mouths. As the carton was pulled out, Shalwa seemed to wake up again. Mionzi said with a worried and reproachful expression, "Shalwa, are you so hungry now that you even want to eat the carton?" Shalwa was a little confused when he heard Janzi's words. Did I eat from the carton? How come I didn't know? Regarding what Shalwa said and his reaction, I don't believe it. You're eating yourself, don't you know? Shalwa just nodded blankly. Nangong Yang seemed to see something. Pass the takoyaki carton that you just snatched to Shalwa again. Seeing his son, he was surprised. Why did Nangong Yang still hand the carton to Shalwa? But Shalwa saw the takoyaki carton and some sauces and condiments on it. As if he had lost his mind, he opened his mouth and wanted to take a bite of the takoyaki carton in front of him. Seeing this, Nangong Yang quickly stopped and threw the cardboard box in his hand directly into the grass in the distance. Only then did Shalwa recover from the state of dementia. At this time, Mionzi next to him also understood. As long as food does not appear in front of Shalwa, there will be no desire to keep eating or appetite. Shalwa was a little confused. What happened to him just now? Next to him, Nangong Yang came to Shalwa, squatted down and touched his belly and asked, "Shalwa, can you eat well these days? I mean, can you eat better than usual?" Although Shalwa didn't know why Nangong Yang wanted to touch his belly, he still answered obediently. 2 days before the holiday, my appetite has been increasing since then. If you don't finish the food cooked by mom at home, you're not full. Shalwa still laughed when he said this. Obviously I am not opposed to becoming more able to eat. At this time Nangong Yang basically confirmed what was going on. Because I just touched Shalwa's belly and felt it with my spiritual power. The food residue in the stomach is digested quickly. This digestion is not another digestion, it is the complete digestion of food. It is so clean that the body only has time to absorb a little bit of nutrients before it is completely digested. Equivalently, only a few % of what you eat is absorbed, and the rest is gone before it has time to be absorbed. Moreover, the intensity of digestion is still improving. Maybe after a while, whatever you eat will be completely clean after a while. By then the body may not be able to absorb even a little bit of food. The only possibility is to starve to death by constantly eating food. After exploring, Nangong Yang stood up. Miko next to me came to the side and asked, "Do you see anything wrong?" Nangong Yang nodded, stretched out his hands and grabbed Shalwa's shoulders. "Classmate Shalwa, do you know you are sick? And it's an incurable disease, so it's almost over." As soon as these words came out, seeing Z, Shalwa was shocked. Shalwa was shocked because she heard that she had an incurable disease. Janzi was shocked because, wasn't this an abnormal phenomenon? Why is it an incurable disease? Shalwa's shoulders kept shaking, his tone was trembling, tears were accumulating in his eyes, and he looked at Nangong Yang with tears in his eyes. Is what Mr. Nangong said true? Didn't you lie to me? Nangong Yang looked at Shalwa seriously. I did not lie to Shalwa. Shalwa suffered from adolescent syndrome. It is also a very special adolescent syndrome, with the characteristic of overeating. During this period, one's appetite and digestion will continue to increase. To get rid of the psychological problems of this adolescent syndrome is equivalent to giving up the gluttonous character. But how can you expect a person whose appetite has been enhanced to get rid of his gluttonous character? So it is very sad and has no solution. Nangong Yang told the two of them the problems he had discovered. This is the first time Mionzi has heard of such a strange and unexplained adolescent syndrome. I also feel desperate for Shalwa. However, Janzi forgot that as long as he accepted Shalwa as his family member, the disease would be cured naturally. As for Shalwazi, he was a little confused. There was such a mysterious disease in the world. But then his eyes became sad, and tears began to accumulate in his eyes. He looked like he was about to cry on the spot. But at this moment, Nangong Yang gave a sentence, but this made Shalwa, who wanted to cry, stop. Janzi, who was in despair, also came back to his senses. The two quickly took Nangong Yang's hand and asked, "But what, can it be saved?" Seeing the anxious look of the two of them, I stopped teasing them. "Miko, you actually know that method, just like Uegahama Yui did." Speaking of which, Yotsuya Miko naturally understood what the method was. I immediately felt speechless, as my best friend was about to fall into Nangong Yang's trap. Although Yotsuya Miko's favorability will continue to increase because of the Insect King's contract. But the improvement of goodwill does not mean that there is no selfishness. Which girl is willing to share her significant other constantly? So this made Miko very depressed. But fortunately, she is her best friend and can be regarded as her own camp in the future. After all, according to Nangong Yang's urinary properties, I'm afraid there will be many sisters in the future. I don't know if there will be small groups. At the same time, I was relieved for Shalwa. After all, Shalwa's adolescent syndrome is very dangerous. It is best to solve it naturally. But seeing that Shalwa still looked confused, Janzi quickly explained to Shalwa the matter of transforming into dependence. After a while, Shalwa finally understood what it meant to transform into a dependent, and his mood turned happy again. After all, not having to die is better than anything else. But then he thought about being bound to Nangong Yang for the rest of his life, and his cheeks began to turn red unconsciously. The fantasy one had on the rooftop seemed to be about to come true. There are just 4 people sitting on a bench, how should they feed each other? It can only be said that girls are so good at association. They have just solved the life and death crisis and started thinking about all sorts of things. Nangong Yang next to him watched, after Janzi Shalwa finished chatting with each other. "How's it going? Has Shalwa decided? If that's all right, then I'll start transforming you into a dependent." Nangong Yang was extremely happy to be able to forward another dependent immediately. Because as more and more dependents are transformed, the growth of the Insect King's chain can be clearly felt. There is a strange premonition that when the number of transformed dependents reaches 10, there will be a qualitative change. Therefore, Nangong Yang is very enthusiastic about transforming dependents. Curious about what kind of changes or abilities your substitute, the Insect King chain, will gain if it goes further. Hearing Nangong Yang's words, Shalwa nervously grabbed her skirt and said, "How should I do?" Nangong Yang looked around and saw that there were always people in the forest park, but there were only very few of them. But fortunately, most people can see the process of Avatar's awakening, so they don't care much about it. "Let's go sit on a bench in a remote part of the park." Then the 3 of them came to a remote bench and sat down. Nangong Yang is already familiar with this process as he has done in transforming dependents several times before. After 1 hour, a figure appeared behind Lily Xuanhua. Nangong Yang and Yotsuya Miko looked at the figure emerging behind Yuri Xuanhua. The figure floating behind Shalwa has a humanoid posture. The left hand holds a large dinnerware, half a person tall. The right hand holds a large table knife, also half a person tall. The humanoid figure is covered in silver armor, with only a pair of eyes exposed on its head. The rest were covered in silver armor, like a strange knight with a knife and fork as a weapon. Nangong Yang looked at it and saw that the substitute this time was actually a rare type that came with its own weapons. This makes Nangong Yang a little worried. Will he be a whiteboard substitute like Bobo? At most, he could take off his armor and speed up, which would make him lose his sight. Miko next to me didn't have that much worry. After all, she hadn't seen Jojo before. Janzi was very curious and approached Shalwa and asked, "Shalwa, your stand-in looks very handsome, like a knight in the comics, but the weapon is a bit weird. Shalwa, do you know what abilities this substitute has?" Shalwa heard that his substitute was very handsome. Like the knight in the comics, he touched the back of his head in embarrassment. "Is it a substitute ability? I don't know about that." Janzi saw that Shalwa didn't know his abilities yet, so he quickly urged, "Shalwa, you can immerse yourself in communicating with your avatar. If there is no reaction, you will know after carefully sensing the information the avatar instinctively feeds back to you." "Okay, let me try." After hearing the instructions given by Mionzi, Shalwa hurriedly followed them. Nangong Yang watched, after Janzi taught Shalwa how to sense the substitute's ability. He was also meditating beside him. This time after transforming Lily Xuanhua into a dependent. He found that only 4 of his substitute, the Insect King chains, had been used. If he continues to transform his dependents, he will have 4 chains left and will have to reduce them further. Although the destructive ability of the Insect King's chain is not very good, it is still quite powerful when used for control, drawing and penetration. If it continues to be reduced to less than 4, your immediate combat power will also be reduced. This is something that is absolutely impossible. It seems that the Shinomiya family needs to be urged to capture the ferocious beast and send it over quickly. Quickly suck a few ferocious beasts to increase your lifespan and condense the rest of the Insect King chains. During this period of Nangong Yang's meditation, Lily Xuanhua on the other side, after discovering that she could communicate with the substitute, had already asked about her ability. Said immediately, "I've already asked about my ability to see my son. But it's a bit difficult to explain. Why not let my substitute perform the following abilities?" "Okay, how do you want to try it? Do you need any venue preparation?" Mionzi responded immediately, while looking around to see if there was any wide space. Nangong Yang, who was deep in thought, came back to his senses after hearing the conversation. "I also want to see Yuri Kawaka's stand-in ability. Will it be Bobo's kind of blank slate?" Lily Xuanhua thought about where the venue would be better. After looking around, I found a small forest and pointed it out immediately. "See you, Mr. Nangong, let's go to the grove over there to show it." Looking at the small forest that Shalwa pointed at, it was quite deep inside. "Then let's go." The 3 of them walked towards the small woods together. When we came to the woods, we found many planted trees. There are also several pieces of marble inside, which seem to be used as landscape stones. Lily Xuanhua looked around and saw that there was no one around and said, "This is a very suitable place for demonstration." Immediately, Shalwa summoned the substitute who had just been taken back. After thinking about the banyan tree, he walked to the side and pointed at the banyan tree. "Go, Gourmet Knight, make this tree into gourmet food for me." Then he saw the Silver Knight rushing out behind Lily Xuanhua. He raised the knife in his right hand, pointed it at the banyan tree in front of him, and cut it dozens of times in an instant. The banyan tree in front of him was chopped into dozens of pieces in an instant, and the substitute did not stop. The fork in his left hand also joined in, thrusting wildly, carving the banyan tree in front of him. The banyan tree block quickly turned into 10 pieces of cut fruit cake in the hands of the substitute. Seeing this scene, the corner of Nangong Yang's mouth twitched a little. This substitute ability is actually to make things into cakes or food. Moreover, Nangong Yang looked at the cake that was made and didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Although it is not a blank slate like Bobo, it is just a matter of making items into food. I felt a little disappointed, but there was nothing I could do about it. Awakening a substitute was always a matter of luck. I thought that as long as it was the female supporting role or the awakening stand-in for the heroine, it would be fine. After all, I was thinking too much, so I calmed down immediately. If a substitute can't do it, then it won't work, but if a person can do it, it'll be fine. Nangong Yang smiled as he thought so. This is the victory of Aku's spirit. Yatsuya Miko on the side saw Yurikawa Hana using a substitute to kill the banyan tree. It is easy to cut into several pieces, and the tree blocks can be made into 10 cakes with a knife and fork. He couldn't help but applauded from the side. "Shalwa, your avatar is very powerful. You can actually turn tree blocks into cakes." Shalwa's face turned a little red when he heard Janzi's praise, but he still said, "Not only that, but I also have abilities that I haven't shown yet. Nangong-kun still has a son. Come here and try the cake made by my stand-in, the Food Knight." Saying this, Lily Xuanhua showed an expectant expression. Nangong Yang and Yatsuya Miko were a little confused after hearing this. Jianzi immediately asked, "Shalwa, does this cake made of trees have any unknown abilities?" Nangong Yang is also looking forward to how Shalwa will answer. Maybe this stand-in isn't just as simple as making food. I heard Miko's question. Shalwa showed a meaningful smile. "Don't worry about it. Just take a bite and try it first and you will know." Obviously, Shalwa wanted to give everyone a surprise. This made Nangong Yang and Yatsuya Miko a little surprised and uncertain. Nandong and Janzi looked at each other, and finally Janzi said, "I'll try it first." Janzi arrived in front of 10 pieces of fruit cake. The fruit cake made from trees looks exactly like real fruit cake. You can't tell at all that it's a cake made from trees. And I don't know if it's an illusion, but I can vaguely smell the fragrant cake smell from the fruit cake. Moreover, the details of the production are very good, and there is a wooden plate underneath to hold the cake. Miko reached out and poked the cake. When I touched the cake, it was just like a real cake, very soft. This shocked Miko. He no longer poked the cake with his hands, but picked up the wooden plate below. He took a closer look at it, and then looked at the place where his finger had just poked, and there was actually a pressed fingerprint. So this is really turning wood into cake. At this time, Yuri Kawaka next to him took out the wooden fork that had just been carved by the substitute and handed it to Miko. "See you, use this fork and eat the cake." Shalwa next to him showed an expectant expression. Yatsugamiko took the fork, looked at the cake on the plate, and swallowed. Use a fork to separate a piece of fruit cake and put it into your mouth. As the cake enters your mouth, Yatsugamiko only felt that the cake in her mouth was extremely smooth and tender. The cake contained cream, but it did not appear sweet, but had an unusual fragrance. At the same time, Mionzi felt it, a force spread throughout his body, and his body recovered inexplicably. At the same time, my spirit seemed to have been sublimated and I became energetic, as if I could stay up late for a day or two without feeling tired. My taste buds felt like they were electrocuted by the delicious food. Give yourself a sensation that starts from your mouth and spreads all over your body. It is tingling. It is commonly known as delicious and numbing. His whole face was exposed uncontrollably, with the expression of a nymphomaniac. Nandong Yang looked at Janzi as if he had taken an aphrodisiac. He also swallowed his saliva. He came to the remaining 9 plates of fruit cake, took 1 plate, and also took a fork with Shalwa. Just sit cross-legged on the ground and start trying. As soon as the first bite of cake entered my mouth, there was only one feeling, it was so delicious that I felt numb. At the same time, as a high level on Myoji, Nandong Yang controls his facial expressions very well. He didn't let himself show a crazy expression. And Nandong Yang could clearly feel that his mental and physical strength had not only been restored, but also had a high-spirited effect. His body also became extremely active, as if he had endless energy. Moreover, Nandong Yang had a clear understanding in his heart that his body was extremely active and could heal itself to a small extent. A broken arm or leg will definitely not heal on its own, but if you are seriously injured, you only need to eat a few pieces of this cake. You can recover from serious injuries to minor injuries, and from minor injuries to normal. At this time, Nandong Yang finally realized the power of Lily Xuanhua's substitute ability. At this time, Nandong Yang finally realized the power of Lily Xuanhua's substitute ability. Why do you say powerful? Because Nandong Yang felt it when he was getting the buff effect. The avatar in the body actually also gained temporary strengthening, destructive power, speed, range, endurance, and precision. These 5 major attributes are temporarily pushed up 1 level, but growth cannot be enhanced. Moreover, the Insect King chain also gained a temporary ability. Insect King summons. You can summon the substitute of your dependents for your own use. Because it is a temporary ability, you can only summon the substitute of one dependent, and the summoned dependent will temporarily lose its substitute. This shocked Nandong Yang. It can actually allow the avatar to obtain temporary enhancements and even acquire temporary abilities. This ability is absolutely powerful, comparable to insect arrows. And temporary enhanced substitutes are just one of them. There are also various gains: physical recovery, mental excitement, physical activation, and finally the ultimate delicious taste. There are 5 buff effects. Extremely delicious does not count. Definitely the most functional substitute. After eating the cake, I also let myself know that substitute Insect King chain can achieve the purification of Requiem in JoJo. The evolution condition should be the number of dependents you have. It was not very certain before, but now it is 9 out of 10 confirmed. Thinking of this, Nandong Yang was so excited that his face began to turn red unconsciously. Lily Xuanhua, who was next to her, looked at Nandong Yang's reddened expression with excitement and saw Z's expression of ecstasy. He held his belly with one hand and bent down slightly, and covered his mouth with the other hand, looking like he was suppressing a smile. But from time to time, it can leak out from the seam of the palm. The intermittent laughter was like the squawking of a goose. Goose, 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 goose. I already knew the ability from the exchange with the substitute just now. I know that after eating delicious food, people's expressions will be difficult to control and become strange. So I wanted to see what was strange, but I saw the two of them looking funny now. This made Nangong Yang and Yotsuya Miko, who were still immersed in it, come back to their senses and look at Lily Xuanhua, who was still laughing there. Zhanzi only felt that he had no face to see others, and the slut expression he showed just now must have been seen by them. It feels like you can dig out a 3-bedroom apartment with your toes on the ground. As for Nangong Yang, he looked at Xuanhua, who was still there squawking. He dug out another piece of the cake he was still holding in his hand, and when Xuanhua let go of his hand, he let go and laughed. He quickly dug out the piece of cake and put it into Xuanhua's mouth. Lily Kawaka, who was still laughing for a moment, paused, and the expression on her face began to unconsciously change to that of a slut. This allowed Yotsuya Miko, who was still in shame next to her, to see an opportunity. He quickly took out his mobile phone and took a close-up of Xuanhua. After a while, Xuanhua came back to his senses, but he thought of the scene where he was photographed just now. Immediately, he pounced on Miko in shame and anger, and the two of them were fooling around in the woods. Next to him, Nangong Yang was sitting on the ground, eating small cakes one bite at a time. Looking at the two people's clothes that were tightened due to the fight, they showed their exquisite and graceful figures. This kind of hot scene is really rare, it is a small show for today. As the fight between Xuanhua and Zhanzi ended, when the two of them came to Nangong Yang, they didn't mind the dirty ground and sat down cross-legged. Let's start eating the fruit cake made by the food knight. Perhaps I had already tried the deliciousness of the cake and got used to the impact of the taste, so I didn't lose control as much as I did when I took the first bite. While eating cake, Zhanzi started chatting with Xuanhua. Xuanhua, how did you come up with the idea of naming your substitute food knight? I was originally thinking of giving your substitute a nice name, but you thought of it yourself first. I already thought of the name, Gourmet. Zhanzi is really cute, and he doesn't want to miss the opportunity to name every substitute. Xuanhua, who was still eating cake, said with a smile. This name was chosen by the substitute himself. He told me when I communicated with him. His own ability is also named food production. Just like the ability I demonstrated just now, I can make objects chopped or stabbed by a knife and fork turn into delicious food. As for what kind of delicious food it is, it depends on what I want. Because of this ability, the knife and fork has absolute cutting and piercing capabilities. So in addition to making delicious food, it also has strong attack capabilities. After hearing what Xuanhua said, Zhanzi didn't care about the power issue. Instead, I was curious, why did Xuanhua make the wood into the shape of a cake? Since it can turn into delicious food just by cutting or stabbing it, why bother making the wood look like a cake? Wouldn't it be better to eat it directly? Hearing Zhanzi ask this, Xuanhua said matter-of-factly. Of course it has to be carved into the shape of a cake, otherwise it would feel weird and ugly to eat it while holding a piece of wood-shaped cake. Zhanzi and Nangong Yang heard this and realized that this was true. Thinking of myself holding a few cylindrical log-shaped cakes, sitting on the ground and eating them. Both of them shuddered. Next to him, Nangong Yang was curious. The delicacies temporarily strengthened the avatar effect. What happened to the two of them after eating it? Xuanhua, the food you made has 5 effects, including the effect of temporarily strengthening the substitute. Did you feel any changes after eating the delicious food just now? Hearing this, Xuanhua felt the feedback from the substitute. The basic attributes, such as strength and speed, have been improved by 1 level. Nangong Yang felt strange when he heard this. Didn't you gain any temporary abilities after eating it? Have it. Xuanhua is strange. What about you, Miko? Did you gain temporary abilities after the avatar was strengthened? Zhanzi responded immediately. I sensed it just now. Apart from the basic attributes increasing by 1 level, there is indeed no temporary ability. This makes Nangong Yang a little confused. Is his substitute any different from their awakened substitutes? Keep thinking. Nangong Yang finally remembered that he wanted to stand in for something different. That is the insect arrow, and his substitute is fused with the insect arrow. It has unimaginable potential, and with a little strengthening, you can gain temporary abilities. Isn't this normal? Thinking of this, Nangong Yang naturally stopped worrying. Just like this, Shalwa's substitute ability has dropped a bit, and he cannot achieve the effect of insect arrows. It can only work on oneself. Forget it, people must be content in their hearts. Ask about something else instead. Shalwa, is there a time limit for the delicious food you make? This is the question Nangong Yang wants to ask most. If there are no restrictions, you can let Shalwa help you make some delicious food. You can always carry it with you, because the temporary strengthening effect of food can give you a temporary ability, Insect King summons. This will greatly improve your own strength. In the future, when you are fighting against an enemy alone, you can freely summon the substitutes of your own family members to help out. Nangong Yang's words made Shalwa think for a moment and give a reply. It's almost like normal food. The cake will last as long as it lasts, and it will always be in the state of food. But the gourmet status, that is, the duration of the buff effect, is only 24 hours, starting from the moment it is made. After 24 hours, it's just regular food, and it's tasteless food. There is actually a time limit, still 24 hours, which makes Nangong Yang a little uncomfortable, but he can still accept it. Janzi and Shalwa were confused. Nangong Yang asked why. Nangong Yang immediately revealed that he could gain temporary abilities after eating delicious food. And he told her and others about the effects of his temporary abilities. This made Shalwa and Janzi exclaim, Nangong Yang's stand-in is abnormal. Because he is equivalent to being able to use the substitutes of all his dependents. At this time, Shalwa thought of a very good method. I might as well use my substitute ability to make you a small bag of peanuts every day. Convenient and simple. When you want to use temporary abilities, just take out a few peanuts from your pocket and eat them. Shalwa, who made such a suggestion, looked proud, as if you come and praise me. Seeing this, Nangong Yang showed a wicked smile, and with lightning speed, he blocked Shalwa's mouth and gave her a sublime kiss. Shalwa only had time to widen her eyes before she fell into a verbal quarrel. Miko's face turned red quickly as she watched from the side. I wanted to stop it, but I looked at my best friend's sinking look. It's not too good. After all, we will be in the same camp from now on. I could only stand there sulking and watching the two of them. This time it lasted more than 3 minutes. Because Shalwa already looked like he was about to run out of oxygen. Nangong Yang just gave up. When he turned around, he saw that Mionzi's face was red and he was glaring at the side. While Shalwa was still confused, he pulled Mionzi over and started the sublimation kiss and verbal fight all over again. Today Nangong Yang achieved a double kill. Chapter 31. Nangong Yang completed the double play. Lily Kawaka looks a little confused. What suddenly occurred to Nangong Yang? I almost forgot. Shalwa, have you recovered from your puberty syndrome? I was so surprised by your abilities for a moment that I almost forgot about your puberty syndrome. Is it completely healed now? But your substitute ability doesn't seem to include gluttony. This makes Nangong Yang wonder if his last substitute theory was wrong. Shalwa came back to his senses after hearing this, forgetting to be shy for a moment. Yes, I became a dependent to solve puberty syndrome. He quickly took a closer look at himself. Then he breathed a sigh of relief. Nangong Yang immediately asked. He now attaches great importance to Shalwa and regards him as a treasure. It has been completely resolved and it has become controllable. How do you say that? Didn't I say before when I was transforming into dependents that after becoming dependents, they will have complete digestion capabilities? Now this complete digestion ability and puberty syndrome are completely integrated. Now I can not only digest food into life force, but also swallow other substances into my stomach and digest them into life force. To put it simply, you can eat anything and digest anything now. Janzi, who had just come back to his senses on the other side, listened to Shalwa's words. He said very speechlessly, Shalwa, you are evolving in the direction of the Teoti of the Dragon Kingdom, and you will never come back. You can make anything into food and then eat it. Even if it is not made into food, you can still eat it. All your abilities are related to what you eat. Nangong Yang also agreed very much after hearing this. It is really a one-way battle to the end, and he is the kind of being who gets stronger the more he eats. Just like this, the three of them were chatting and eating in the woods. Even if the cake they had made before was eaten, they could not be stopped. Shoma will run to a tree again and make various delicacies. I even cut half of the viewing stone to make a gourmet meal to see if there was any difference in the taste. The three of them were just in the woods, using local materials, constantly looking for all kinds of strange things to make delicious food. Just for a taste of freshness and curiosity. Several kilograms of soil in the forest park were dug out. Evening. The three of them ate in the forest park until more than 6 o'clock before they satisfied their curiosity and taste buds. Then they went home slowly. When Nandong Yang returned to the office, it was already past 7 o'clock, and there was no need to order takeout or have dinner. I've eaten out enough all day, now I need to exercise. Nandong Yang came to the fitness area on the 3rd floor and started lifting barbells to see how much physical strength he had now. Go to the barbell rack and increase the weight of the barbell to 5,000 kilograms. Fortunately, this barbell is a special martial artist's equipment, otherwise the ordinary barbell would have bent. As Nandong Yang took such a deep breath, a breeze seemed to blow around him. The air was continuously sucked into Nandong Yang's mouth, and the surrounding breeze began to gradually become stronger. Fortunately, Nandong Yang began to slow down his inhalation, and his breathing rhythm became gentle. But his chest was bulging, the muscles on his body were bouncing and beating, and his blood vessels were bulging like little snakes. The 5,000 kilogram barbell was slowly lifted with both hands, rising higher and higher until it was lifted above the head. Then Nandong Yang began to train up and down squats by raising the weight above his head. As the exercise progressed, Nandong Yang's body began to turn red and steam came out. 1, 2, 3.1000 inches. When the number reached 1,000, Nandong Yang slowly put it down. As the barbell was lowered, Nandong Yang exhaled a breath, which was like a small hot wind blowing out. Beyond condensing qi and blood, you need to at least increase your physical strength several times more. It's really difficult to achieve both spiritual and martial arts cultivation. Now that I can practice to this level, I still have the vitality help from the feedback from the Insect King contract. Without the vitality feedback from the Insect King contract, there is absolutely no hope of practicing qi and blood. Nandong Yang, who was complaining like this, took the sweat towel next to him and wiped it. At the very least, you must train your strength to 10,000 kilograms before you can sense the life energy and have the opportunity to develop qi and blood. If this were the case in the previous life, I could become a little Superman with 10,000 kilograms of force. This is where martial artists start. What a monster. At this time, there was a cell phone next to me, and there was a sound. Nandong Yang looked at the phone number and was not impressed, but picked it up and answered it anyway. Which one? Hello, Mr. Nandong, this is the housekeeper of the 4th palace. Some of the ferocious beasts you told us about before have been captured. They have been sent to a special warehouse for you. There are 9 of them in total. The location has been sent to you. You can go to the warehouse tomorrow and state your name. Location. Nandong Yang looked at the location where the text message was sent and replied immediately. Okay, I get it. After saying that, Nandong Yang hung up the phone. A happy smile appeared on his face. Okay, I can try it tomorrow, suck the beast dry, and see how much it improves my lifespan. After all, this is related to the speed of one's family. Nandong Yang also stopped exercising. No matter how much you exercise, it is better to absorb the ferocious beasts, which will strengthen yourself faster. I went back to the 2nd floor to wash up and then went to bed, looking forward to my harvest tomorrow. The next day, Nandong Yang arrived early in the morning and saw the positioning of Sigong Jaffa yesterday. The surrounding area is extremely deserted, with only a high wall and iron gate in front of you. From time to time, there were sounds from behind the door, shocking roars of beasts. Really shocking. If an ordinary person were to stand here, they would only feel that their heart is extremely depressed. If a person suffers from a heart attack, he or she will be sent away immediately after suffering a heart attack, making it impossible to save him or her. But the difference is Nandong Yang, who feels extremely excited when he hears it. Because the ferocious beasts inside can greatly increase your lifespan, and are also important ingredients that can make you on the road to invincibility. Nandong Yang came to the iron door in front of him and pressed the doorbell next to him. Stand still and wait for the door to open. Pit. With an unusual sound, the heavy iron door in front of him was slowly pushed open. It looked like the thickness of the iron door was at least 5 centimeters. A strong man 1 or 2 meters tall appeared behind the door. He had a short black hair and glasses, and his body was covered with cross scars and gunshot marks. One can tell at a glance that he is a fierce man who came down from the battlefield. A deep voice came out from the man in front of me. Is this Mr. Nandong Yang? Yes. Okay, then please come in, and please stay with me. If something happens, I won't be responsible. The strong man in front of him just said a few words in a low voice, and after Nandong Yang came in, he closed the iron door again. He then returned to the front to lead the way, while Nandong Yang followed behind. After passing through 2 walls that were as thick as the outside, I entered the inside and had a thorough look at the situation inside. There are 9 fixed steel cages here. The railings of the cages look like iron pillars, which are inserted directly into the ground. The ferocious beasts imprisoned there include brown bears, tigers, and wild boars. Among them, wild boars are the most numerous, with 6 in total, as well as a brown bear and 2 tigers. The most peculiar thing is the brown bear, which is almost 4 meters tall. Nandong Yang could feel the thick and explosive breath from this brown bear. Maybe he felt that Nandong Yang was looking at it. He turned back in the direction of Nandong Yang, slapped his hand casually, and hit the special railing directly. Although the bear's paw did not hit Nandong Yang, the airwaves that broke out from the railing made Nandong Yang's hair swing back. Feelings in my heart. This is really terrifying. If the ferocious beasts didn't have brains, it would be difficult to catch them. The strong man next to him looked at Nandong Yang and thought he was scared. Said in a low voice, "These cages are made of special metal, so you don't have to worry about these vicious beasts coming out. I don't care what you do next. I'm only responsible for guarding here." After the strong man finished speaking, he stepped aside, but did not leave directly to prevent the young man in front of him from getting lost. Nandong Yang doesn't care about this. Turning to look inside the ferocious beasts, the brown bear was the strongest, followed by the tiger and wild boar. Let's start with the wild boar. Nandong Yang walked towards the iron cage containing the ferocious wild boar on the other side. The wild boar inside is nearly 2 meters tall, which is taller than my height of 1.8 meters. Looking at Nandong Yang outside the iron cage, his expression was extremely fierce. Because wild boars are overpopulated here in Sakura country, there are more ferocious beasts appearing in wild boars. Therefore, wild boars are the best beasts to catch. Nandong Yang unfolded the insect king chain behind his back and controlled the 4 chains to penetrate directly into the ferocious wild boar inside. The ferocious wild boar felt that he had been stabbed by something, and immediately angrily used the sharp teeth at the corner of his mouth to hit the iron cage crazily. I want to teach the weak chickens outside the iron cage a lesson, because in the perception of the ferocious beasts, the weak humans outside are provoking themselves with weak attacks. Nandong Yang could clearly feel that every impact of the ferocious wild boar had a force of no less than 10 tons. Apparently it didn't take long for him to become a ferocious beast. If he charges, his strength may be doubled. As the insect king's chain penetrated deeper, Nandong Yang opened up the ability to suck life. As the insect king's chain penetrated deeper, Nandong Yang opened up the ability to suck life. The body of the ferocious wild boar began to dry up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just like a balloon being popped, all the life force in the body was taken away. Quickly follow the insect king chain and pass it into Nandong Yang's body. Let Nandong Yang enjoy the pleasure from the body, and every cell in his body begins to become excited and active. DNA telomeres deep within cells are lengthening, and cell strength is increasing. Nandong Yang can clearly feel that his body functions are improving rapidly. Originally, his strength was only more than 5 tons. Now it has jumped to at least 10 tons, and it feels like there is still some vitality accumulated in the body. As long as I exercise a little strength, it can increase to a few tons more. Strength is only second, and lifespan has been increased by about 10 years. Normally, the lifespan of a ferocious wild boar is more than twice that of an ordinary wild boar, almost 100 years. As a result, it can only last for 10 years, a 10th ratio, although not all, but it is enough. The ability to suck life into normal use for the first time, overall very good. This is much faster than the vitality fed back by the Insect King contract to increase lifespan, physique, and strength. Nandong Yang started to get a little excited. Immediately, he glanced at the remaining ferocious beasts. His gaze was like looking at a big tonic food. The remaining beasts began to riot a bit, constantly hitting the steel cage, making a sound of fine iron hitting. The strong man next to him looked at the strange scene happening in front of him. A ferocious wild boar seemed to be drained of energy inexplicably and quickly shriveled up. And it can be clearly felt that the physical fitness of the young man standing outside the cage is improving at a speed visible to the naked eye, at least more than doubled. Although the strong man has not yet become a true martial artist, he is only one step away, and he can naturally feel the changes in Nandong Yang's body. This made the strong man couldn't help but swallow his saliva, feeling a little timid in his heart. The young man in front of him seemed to have the power of a man-eating demon. He regretted meddling in his own business and should have left as soon as possible. Why should I worry about the young man in front of me? What I am worried about now is myself. Will he be silenced by the young man? Now Nandong Yang, who cares about this? He only has one thought in his mind, to suck all these ferocious beasts dry. Soon Nandong Yang came to another cage. The ferocious wild boar inside seemed to have a premonition of death and was frantically attacking the cage in front of him, trying to escape. But it was impossible. The ferocious wild boar in front of him returned to the underworld in the same way. The strength increased again by 4 tons, and the lifespan increased by 10 years. The next beast. The strength increased again by 3 tons, and the lifespan increased by 10 years. Next, the strength increases by 2 tons and the lifespan increases by 10 years. Next, the strength increases by 1 ton and the lifespan increases by 10 years. Next, strength increased by half a ton and lifespan increased by 10 years. At this time, Nandong Yang only felt that he was about to feel so happy that his eyes turned white and his hair was flying. Very much like the Fanma star above. The inexplicable aura formed on his body began to spread outward involuntarily, which made the strong man watching beside him feel depressed. The strong man watching from the side was being enveloped by the diffuse momentum, and the strong man felt his whole body trembling. It was the trembling caused by facing a life that was more powerful and advanced than oneself. At the same time, the chill and fear in his heart became more and more intense. The young man in front of him definitely had the ability to bite people. And can this young man's character be able to control his sudden surge in power? Will his character change? After all, if it can suck ferocious beasts, it can naturally suck humans. Once the bottom line is relaxed, it will definitely be an invincible demon. This is what makes strong men feel fear. Back to Nandong Yang. Nandong Yang reached out and grabbed the void. The air in front of him was instantly squeezed and exploded, and a strong wind blew up. Nandong Yang can clearly feel that his strength is at least close to 21 tons. And he can already feel the powerful life energy in his body, which makes Nandong Yang feel very happy. Because being able to sense life energy means that you can cultivate the power of qi and blood. However, I was a little unhappy that after taking in the ferocious wild boar beast, the increase in strength actually decreased gradually. However, we also understand that the stronger and higher the physical fitness is, the more vitality is required, and the natural rising power will gradually decrease. But fortunately, the lifespan is only based on 1/10 of the ratio and will not decrease gradually. Nandong Yang looked at the remaining ferocious beasts and chose the remaining 2 tigers from the brown bear and tiger. The 2 ferocious tigers were stared at by Nandong Yang. Their hair suddenly exploded, and the 2 ferocious tigers let out a menacing roar at the same time. However, this intimidating roar was like a breeze blowing on the face, and could not deter Nandong Yang in the slightest. Only the fishy smell coming from the roar of the 2 tigers made Nandong Yang frown. He immediately took control of himself, and the aura he unconsciously unleashed pressed against the 2 ferocious tiger beasts. For a moment, the 2 ferocious tiger beasts became as quiet as kittens, as if they were overwhelmed by Mount Tai, lying on the ground and not daring to move. But Nandong Yang did not stop because they were suppressed. He still shot 2 insect king chains and inserted them into their bodies to start sucking life. This time Nangong Yang obtained it from 2 tiger beasts, his strength increased by more than 6 tons, and his lifespan was only 10 years. Obviously, these 2 tiger beasts are much stronger than the previous wild boar beasts. But even if tigers become ferocious beasts, their lifespan is not very long. 2 of them only lived 10 years. Nangong Yang looked at the last ferocious beast, the brown bear. The brown bear in the iron cage is very calm. From the moment Nangong Yang was sucking the wild boar, even the tiger seemed a little calm. He seemed to take life and death lightly, but he could still see the endless anger in the bear's eyes. This made Nangong Yang, who wanted to suck the brown bear directly, stopped and looked at the brown bear in the cage. He said it to himself, not caring whether the brown bear inside understood it or not. You feel aggrieved, unwilling, and angry. Did you die in such a useless way? The brown bear in the cage may have understood what Nangong Yang said, and let out a roar, which was full of anger. Really, I'll let you out and let's have a fight. At this time, Nangong Yang felt his expanding power and said with a little excitement. Because of the brown bear's frustration and anger, Nangong Yang was born and wanted to fight the brown bear one-on-one. If nothing else, the expansion of power at this time gave Nangong Yang a desire to vent his power, commonly known as the desire for destruction. The brown bear's anger and frustration can only be said to be the trigger. Nangong Yang looked at the strong man standing stupidly next to him and said, "Open the door, I'm going to have a fight with this ferocious brown bear." The strong man was silent for a while without saying anything. He walked to the operating room in the corner and lowered the iron door of the brown bear cage. Nangong Yang looked at the iron gate that was gradually going downwards, and the figure of the brown bear that was about to move behind the iron gate. Because of the power of expansion, the destructive desire generated by the psychology completely emerged, and the face began to look ferocious, with veins bulging on the face, especially the blood vessels in the temple swimming like snakes. As for the muscles on his body, he has also bulged up, and his height has increased from 1.8 meters to 1.85 meters. His originally normal figure became stronger, and his clothes were stretched out like a tights. The brown bear in the iron cage looked at the completely lowered iron door and the figure outside the door that exuded surging fighting spirit. Then he roared angrily, got down on all fours, and rushed out of the iron gate. When he was close to Nangong Yang, he used the force of his forward thrust to extend his 2 bare claws and pounce forward. I want to push Nangong Yang to the ground. But Nangong Yang did not dodge, and stretched his hands forward to touch the palms of the nearly 4-meter brown bear. There was a loud bang, a man and an animal collided together, the air between the palms was completely emptied, forming an explosion of air that spread out. But this had no effect on one person or one beast at all, and the 2 sides began to wrestle with their palms touching each other. Obviously, in terms of strength, Nangong Yang was the better, with a full 27 tons of upward force, directly crushing the brown bear. He easily pushed the brown bear with only 18 tons of force backwards. This caused the brown bear's wildness to explode, and he opened his mouth and bit forward. Seeing this, Nangong Yang squatted down, grabbed one of the brown bear's arms, and threw it forward. Before the inertia of the brown bear's forward bite had passed, he was thrown to the ground hard. At this time, Nangong Yang felt extremely comfortable all over his body, and he was filled with emotion. Sure enough, the pure violence of the body is more comfortable to fight. I used to use exorcism to fight, and it was always so uncomfortable. Single quote. Sure enough, the melee mage is better. Looking at the brown bear that was lying on the ground and slowly getting up, I felt excited again. He immediately rushed forward. When the brown bear on the opposite side saw Nangong Yang coming again, he immediately stretched out his paws. However, in the process, the paws stretched out became abnormally swollen and became much larger than before. Nangong Yang, who rushed over, noticed the brown bear stretching back to accumulate strength, but did not notice the swelling of the bear's paws. While charging forward, he also took up a stance of charging up a punch, hoping for a head-on confrontation. This made the strong man watching in the control room shake his head. This young man obviously had no experience in hand-to-hand combat, didn't know how to dodge, and didn't know how to observe. To rush forward so stupidly is completely reckless. To rush forward so stupidly is completely reckless. Have you forgotten that there is a ferocious beast on the other side? You can use the power of qi and blood. Obviously Nangong Yang is really high. The moment his palms met with the brown bear's, he was crushed instead. Nangong Yang could clearly feel that his metacarpal bones and hand bones were shattered. And the palm of the brown bear was directly printed on Nangong Yang's chest without any loss of strength. As the bear's paw imprinted on Nangong Yang's chest, there was a muffled sound and a burst of air. Boom, a sound. Suddenly, Nangong Yang was blown away like a cannonball. It hit the wall directly, and the whole person was directly embedded in the wall. But the brown bear still didn't give up, because the person in front of him still gave him a strong sense of death. Rushed towards Nangong Yang at top speed. At this time, Nangong Yang, who was embedded in the wall, felt severe pain all over his body, and several ribs in his chest were probably broken. Why did this brown bear beast suddenly gain so much strength? A vicious beast. Yes. Oh my god, why did I forget that brown bears are ferocious beasts? Fierce beasts all use the power of blood. Isn't it normal to be able to increase their power several times in an instant? Breathing life into myself, I almost sucked myself silly. Sure enough, the strength increased too fast, causing the mentality to become inflated. No, from now on the ferocious beast must suck it slowly, and cannot suck too much at one time, otherwise it will swell and cause death. At this moment, Nangong Yang's IQ finally occupied the high ground again. Looking at the brown bear charging towards him, Nangong Yang was about to release the insect king chain from his chest. It was shot directly at the brown bear's legs, taking advantage of its invisible substitute to directly wrap and tighten them. This caused the brown bear that was charging towards this side to stumble and fall to the ground struggling. Nangong Yang, who was still embedded in the wall at this time, observed his injuries. When the bear's paw came into contact with his right hand, it was completely fractured, and 5 ribs in his chest were broken. This is the worst time since I awakened my past life memories. Immediately use spiritual power to straighten the fractures and broken parts on his body, and use spiritual power to slightly glue them together. Only then did he exert his strength to free himself from the wall, feeling the constant pain in his chest and arms. Always remind yourself not to get sick again. He immediately looked at the brown bear still lying on the ground struggling. The brown bear can feel his legs being tied by something invisible. He kept exerting force to break free, even using the power of qi and blood, but he couldn't break free. It just left a few big holes in the ground in vain, and still couldn't break the invisible chains. This made Nangong Yang, who was watching from the side, frightened. The brown bear had a strength of only about 18 tons. After using the power of qi and blood, not only does the body become extremely hard, but the strength also increases exponentially. He looked at the several big holes in the ground that were hammered out in order to break free of the chains. This is at least 60 tons of force, which is equivalent to more than tripling the force. Fortunately, that bear's paw was hit on the chest, not on the head, otherwise I might have returned to the underworld as a soul. The strengthening effect of the power of qi and blood is so incredible. No wonder top martial artists can blow up a mountain. Although spiritual power also has strengthening characteristics, it is only a percentage strengthening. The main purpose is to play with weirdness and many tricks. Nangong Yang looked at the brown bear and sighed. Little bear, although you hurt me, I'm not angry because you helped me wake up from my bloating. So as a thank you, merge with me. Nangong Yang, who spoke shamelessly, extended 2 bracelets from his chest and inserted them directly into the brown bear's chest. But the brown bear vaguely felt the crisis, and immediately mobilized the power of qi and blood to strengthen the chest defense. The 2 chain arrows collided, and the brown bear's chest made a sound of fine iron. Aha! Nangong Yang was a little surprised that the chain arrow was blocked. This was the first time. It seems that he will have to guard against ferocious beasts and martial artists in the future. After strengthening his body, his defense hardness is actually so high. Immediately, 7 more chains extended from his chest, plus the 2 in front and the 2 that bound his legs. There are now a total of 11 insect king chains. Except for the 2 chains tied to the legs, the rest of the chains are stabbing at the brown bear beast. For a moment, the brown bear beast's sense of crisis surged, and it directly used the power of qi and blood to strengthen its whole body. Suddenly, the sound of jingling fine iron rang out in the ferocious beast's warehouse. The current Insect King chain is because Nangong Yang's body has become stronger than ever. It has also been strengthened, but only the basic attributes have been strengthened, so each chain has the same power as Nangong Yang. So at this moment, the brown bear beast is facing 9 arrows with a force of 27 tons, which are constantly stabbing. Therefore, the energy and blood of the ferocious brown bear beast will soon be exhausted. Because his legs were tied with chains, he had no power to resist, and ended up with the same ending as the other ferocious beasts. After sucking up the brown bear beast, Nangong Yang once again felt the relief of ascending to heaven. At the same time, all the injuries on his body have recovered, his strength has increased from the original 27 tons to 30 tons, and his lifespan has increased by another 10 years. Adding in the previous lifespan gain, it has reached a lifespan of 161 years. This made Nangong Yang very excited. Not to mention the power, the lifespan of 161 years can be improved in the future, which is equivalent to real immortality. But soon Nangong Yang began to calm down his mood and prevent his penis from swelling again. Now is not the time to expand. When we become truly globally invincible, it will not be too late to expand. Then we can directly become the ancestors of the world, Nangong Yang comforted himself. Obviously, this reason for self-comfort is still very useful, and I will calm down soon. Nangong Yang looked at the somewhat messy venue and the strong man walking out of the control room and said, "This place has been destroyed like this. Is everything okay? If nothing happens, I will leave directly." What Nangong Yang said left the strong man speechless. How dare a strong man say something is wrong? Even if you tell me, if something happens, will you really pay for it? Thank goodness he didn't suck me dry right then and there to prevent leaks. It's okay, Mr. Nangong, I will handle the follow-up here. The strong man bent slightly and nodded. Okay, then I'll leave first. After saying that, Nangong Yang started to walk back. Until Nangong Yang completely disappeared from the sight of the strong man. The strong man breathed a sigh of relief. I really saw a terrifying existence today. The strong man had been thinking about the significance of establishing this beast warehouse. Are we just going to capture a few ferocious beasts and keep them here forever? I didn't expect that the ferocious beast captured here would become this young man's food. I don't know if this young man will break into the martial arts world. If he enters the martial arts world, his future achievements will definitely be among the best in the world, just like Yukino Fanma of his own country, standing at the top of the country. On the way back, Nangong Yang took stock of today's harvest. The power increased from the original 5 tons to 30 tons. Life expectancy has almost doubled from 81 years to 161 years. The number of Insect King chains has increased from 4 to 12 now. The price consumed was only 9 low-level ferocious beasts. However, from now on, the ferocious beasts can only suck one by one, and cannot absorb too much at one time. Otherwise, if you increase too much power at one time, it will easily expand, which may include excessive adrenaline affecting your mood. Nangong Yang, who kept thinking in his mind, returned to his office. After ordering a few takeaways for himself, Nangong Yang lay on the sofa and started scrolling through his phone. As I was browsing, I suddenly saw that Chuo District, Chiba Prefecture, was holding a 3-day pet exhibition on May 3rd. Seeing this, Nangong Yang suddenly became alert and thought of something. There was a pet exhibition, and it suddenly occurred to me that I had asked Yui before if there were any activities during Golden Week. He said that as long as there is a pet show, he will go to it. Thinking of this, Nangong Yang immediately opened Line on his mobile phone. Nangong, at Yaoyi, have you figured out how to play during Golden Week? Yui, what's wrong with Nangong-kun? It feels like there's nothing fun about it. Yui, yesterday I was dragged out by Yuko to go shopping, and it didn't feel very interesting. Little Bear wiped sweat. Nangong, is there a pet show in Chuo District, Chiba Prefecture on May 3rd? Yui, is there actually a pet exhibition? Why didn't I hear about it? Nangong, I just posted this, I saw it on my phone, and I immediately thought of you. Love. Yui, it's really great. I'm going to the pet show that day. Little Bear holding face. Nangong, the pet exhibition starts on May 3rd. Let's meet at the school gate at 4 p.m. Yui, okay, puppy for sure. Yui, Are we just the two of us? Little bear is shy. Nangong. I understand everything, dog head sticking out tongue. The Uegahama family. Uegahama Yui, who was watching TV on the sofa with her mother, blushed and threw her phone aside. Nangong-jun is so bad. Uegahama's mother looked at Yui's sudden blush and what she just said. Uegahama's mother looked at Yui's sudden blush and what she just said. I couldn't help but cover my mouth and chuckle. I don't even want to watch the bubble dramas on TV, but I just want to taste my daughter's big melon. Yui, what's wrong with you? Is the Nangong-jun you just mentioned your classmate or? Uegahama's mother mouthed 3 words for her boyfriend. Faced with her mother's teasing, Yui was so embarrassed that she just wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl into it. Of course I'm a classmate, and mom, don't ask too many questions, or else I'll ignore you. After Yui said loudly while holding back her embarrassment, she ran back to her room and locked it up. Hoo-hey-hey. Uegahama's mother couldn't help but cover her mouth and let out a joyful laugh. Time flies, and the time soon comes to the afternoon of May 3rd. Nangong-yang got ready to dress up in his room. Wearing a casual t-shirt and denim trousers, because my figure is a bit strong now, the t-shirt can show some muscle outline but it doesn't look artificial. You can easily tell that the person in front of you has a perfectly proportioned figure. At the same time, he took off his black-rimmed glasses that he had been wearing for a while. When looking at the person in the mirror in front of him, with his extremely handsome face and starry sky-like eyes, he is like a god descending to earth, banished to the world. It seems that through the ability of the Insect King's chain to absorb life, his appearance has become more extraordinary. Would it be too eye-catching to go out like this? Saying this, Nangong-yang raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and no one knew the pride in his heart. It's time to go, we can't keep the girl waiting. Sobu High School. Perhaps it was because during the holidays, there were no people at the school gate, and only a few people passed by occasionally. But at the school gate, stood a girl with short orange hair tied into a bun. The girl is none other than Uegahama Yui. She is wearing a yellow camisole at this time. She is youthful and energetic and shows her plump figure. She was wearing a knee-length white skirt, a pair of wedge shoes on her slender calves, and she was holding a dachshund in her hand. At this time, Yui was slightly nervous, waiting for the arrival of Nangong-yang at the school gate. Not long after, a tall figure walked in the distance, and Yui could see it from a distance. He recognized it at a glance and it was Nangong-yang. He immediately took sablé and ran over happily. As Yui approached, she noticed that Nangong-yang was not wearing his usual black-rimmed glasses today. When Yui finally came to Nangong-yang, she was shocked by Nangong-yang's appearance after taking off her glasses. Especially when she saw the eyes, it was even worse, which made Yui's eyes nailed to Nangong-yang's face. This made Nangong-yang feel satisfied, but Yui couldn't stay like this forever. He stretched out his hand on Yui's head, rubbed it slightly, and said at the same time, "Wake up quickly, we have to go to the pet show." Following Nangong-yang's actions and reminders, Yui finally woke up, her face suddenly turned red, and she stammered. "Morning, good morning, Nangong-kun." Listening to this stuttering and silly greeting, Nangong-yang said with a little helplessness, "Yui, it's getting late, it's already afternoon." Oh. For a while, Yui became even less able to speak. But Nangong-yang was not impatient, but gently held Yui's hand. "Let's go to the pet show now. We have plenty of time, so walk there slowly." Saying this, Nangong-yang took Yui's hand and walked in front. At the same time, I also noticed that Yui actually brought Saber out, which was a bit redundant. It seems that it is a bit difficult to make some substantial progress today. The saber dachshund next to him ran up to Nangong-yang, looked at it for a few times, and kept wagging its tail. He obviously recognized Nangong-yang and didn't stop him. He just ran back and forth between Yui and Nangong-yang happily. After Yui was pulled for a while, she came back to her senses and saw that her hand was being held by Nangong-yang, feeling extremely happy. I am no longer curious about why Nangong-yang is so handsome today. After my mood calmed down, I followed Nangong-yang and walked side by side. Say it with a smile while facing Nangong-yang. "Nangong-kun, it's great to see another side of you. To put it bluntly, our relationship now is the closest, don't you think?" Saying this, Nangong Yang tightened Yui's hand. In this way, the two of them chatted all the way to the pet exhibition. But on the way to the pet exhibition, many girls were attracted by Nangong Yang's appearance and stopped to watch. Many of the boyfriends next to the girls secretly gritted their teeth and wished they could eat Nangong Yang alive. At first, Yui was extremely nervous, fearing that these bad women would come up to talk to Nangong Yang and seduce Nangong Yang away. Fortunately, the woman who saw Nangong Yang along the way seemed to be stunned and didn't react before she came up to talk to her. This made Yui sigh in relief. Nangong Yang, who had been observing Yui's expression, couldn't help but feel happy. Soon the two came to the pet exhibition, bought tickets, and entered. The Yui pet exhibition is divided into several areas. Which area should I start from? Yui immediately responded, of course it's the dog section. Then let's go, Yui, you lead the way. This is my first time attending a pet show. Then, led by Yui, we watched a lot of puppies. Especially when I saw a teddy in a pet cage at an exhibition, staring at the air, it made Nangong Yang laugh. He also told Yui that he was not allowed to buy this kind of Japanese dog in the future. Looking back later, I saw that the Pomeranian, which is considered the pinnacle of beauty in the dog world, made Nangong Yang want to buy one back, but he saw the harsh feed and feeding methods. Nangong Yang finally backed down. This made Yui persuade Nangong Yang that puppies are friends of humans and puppies can do whatever they want. Nangong Yang couldn't help but think of the animal stand-ins in JoJo, especially IQI Noble Fool. I liked it very much when I was watching the anime, and I was thinking about buying a Boston and turning it into a substitute. When he saw Boston in the puppy area, Nangong Yang gave up. He is really not very smart, or in fact incompatible with him, so even if he touches him or feeds him, he will not be ashamed of himself. In the end, Yui was asked to feed him, and he just ate it. He turned out to be an old pervert, so he simply gave up. From then on, Nangong Yang was convinced that no male creature, not even a dog, would be allowed to appear in my family. After Nangong Yang and Yui visited the dog area, they were about to walk to the cat area. A female arm stretched out from behind to hold Nangong Yang's shoulder. Nangong Yang subconsciously wanted to punch back. Because Nangong Yang can sense that the person behind him has strong life energy, which is a bit stronger than his own life energy. When he turned around with his fists clenched, he saw Shizuka Hiratsuka wearing a white coat. This made Nangong Yang, who had just sharp eyes, turn into a look of astonishment. As for Shizu Hiratsuka, looking at Nangong Yang, who was like an immortal descending into the world at this moment, his heartbeat accelerated involuntarily, and the deer in his heart almost jumped out of his throat. When Yui saw Hiratsuka Shizunori shrank up, she subconsciously avoided the teacher. After all, the teacher discovered that he was in love, which was not a good sign. Nangong Yang coughed twice. What a coincidence, Teacher Jing. Are you also going to visit the pet exhibition? After hearing Nangong Yang's question, Hiratsuka Shizuka woke up and subconsciously wiped her saliva. Then he reacted and said angrily, "You brat, didn't you promise that I wouldn't show it to you at will? So now you are relying on your ability to pick up girls, right?" Hiratsuka Shizuka, who said this, glanced at Yuigahama Yui next to her, and the meaning was obvious. This left Nangong Yang very speechless. If he had known better, he would not have talked about his eyes or other superpowers. Teacher Jing, I can actually explain it. No need to explain. You kid doesn't hesitate to show off in public just to pick up girls, but you really belong to me. Yui next to her thought that Teacher Jing was blaming Nangong Yang for her love problems. Come forward immediately. I actually have a share of responsibility for this. If the teacher wants to blame, he should blame me too. What Yui said made Hiratsuka Shizu and Nangong Yang very fascinated. But soon the two of them realized that they thought Hiratsuka Shizuka was blaming Nangong Yang for her relationship problems. This made it difficult for the two of them to continue talking. But Nangong Yang still said to Shizuka Hiratsuka, "Teacher Jing, in fact, you don't need to worry about me at all now. As a martial artist, you should feel the difference in me now." As soon as Nangong Yang said these words, Hiratsuka Shizuka finally realized. I had sensed the strong life energy here before. I thought it was some martial artist, so I wanted to come over and get to know him. Who knew that the person he was chatting with was actually his student? At the same time, he was once again shocked into silence by the student's appearance. As a result, I temporarily forgot that I came here to find a martial artist. After reacting, Hiratsuka Shizu was even more shocked. How long has it been? Nangong Yang's life energy at this time has reached the minimum standard for an intermediate martial artist. The difference between him and me is not too far away. When I met Nangong Yang in the office before, the life energy was still in a state of silence. In other words, the physical quality at that time was not enough to sense life energy. It's only been a week or two and I'm almost catching up with myself. What did you eat, genius treasure? Hiratsuka Shizu was a little confused for a while. Looking at Nangong Yang, he is still in the center of the pet exhibition, with people coming and going. It's not easy to talk about anything. He also hurriedly pulled the two of them to the corner of the pet exhibition. After Shizu Hiratsuka accepted the reality a little, the three of them had arrived at the corner of the pet exhibition. Shizuka Hiratsuka looked at Nangong Yang with complicated eyes. Boy, you are really a monster. Forget it, I won't talk about you anymore. With your current strong physical fitness, ordinary people really can't do anything to you. Nangong Yang just smiled when he heard this. It's just a coincidence. Shizuka Hiratsuka doesn't want to say more about this, because if she talks too much, she will burst into tears. I have been practicing martial arts for many years, but within a few days, I was almost surpassed by others, who were still younger than me. The blow was really great. Hiratsuka Shizu seemed to think of something and continued. By the way, my previous promise is still valid. If you encounter anything you can't handle, you can come to me. Okay, since you have the confidence, I won't care about it so much. You two can continue. Immediately, Hiratsuka Shizu walked away completely. Halfway there, he seemed to think of something, turned around and said again. And next time there is a chance, we can compete and learn from each other. After saying this time, Nangong Yang was not given a chance to say more. It's time to return to the dog section of the pet show. Nangong Yang felt that Shizuka Hiratsuka was really extremely self-centered. However, Yui didn't understand a word Nangong Yang and Shizuka Hiratsuka said from beginning to end, and she didn't understand anything, so she felt very cute. Looking at Yui, who was still in a cute state, she gently pinched both cheeks and pulled them. Okay, don't think about it. This was just a misunderstanding between Teacher Jing and I. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, let's continue shopping. The next area is the cat area. With that said, Nangong Yang took Yui's hand again and walked towards the cat section together. Therefore, Yui didn't think much and continued to enjoy the time with Nangong Yang. It would be nice if Sabri, who was holding his hand, could stop being between him and Nangong Yang all the time. I saw Saber next to her feet. One moment she ran to lie down on Nangong Yang's trousers, and the next moment she ran to Yui's feet and rubbed them, begging to be touched and teased. In Yui's eyes, she almost turned into a dog-shaped light bulb. The two of them led Saber to the cat area and watched various types of cats in order. Halfway through the cat section, Yui spotted a familiar figure on the side. Immediately handed Sabri's dog leash to Nangong Yang. He ran to the Persian cat area in front and greeted the figure squatting there, Yukino Shita Yukino. Hey, hello, Yukino, you're coming to the pet show to see the cats too. This made the Persian cat squatting beside him keep meowing at Yukino Shita Yukino, and he came back to his senses. Looking to the back, I heard the shadow of a voice. After seeing it was Yui, I was relieved, thinking it was an acquaintance. But when his eyes looked at a figure behind him, Shueno was completely stunned. Is this handsome guy Nangong Yang? For a moment, I could only think of this question. She completely fell into Nangong Yang's eyes. When Yukino came to his senses completely, the two of them were already standing beside her. This shocked Yukino Shita Yukino. Why did you two come to me without saying a word? Shueno's tone when speaking was a little panicked, and she didn't dare to admit that she was stunned by Nangong Yang's appearance just now. Although Nangong Yang knew it, he didn't point it out. Yui next to me said happily. Of course I just came here, it's just Yukino who is in a daze. Then he looked at the Persian cat that Yukino had been staring at just now. So Yukino, you like Persian cats? It does look cute, doesn't it? Just like this, the two women seemed to have countless topics about cats. While chatting and browsing the cat section, Nandong had nothing to interrupt. Soon the three of them finished browsing the cat section. Yui originally wanted to continue and take Yukino to visit other pet areas. But Yukino said that she wanted to stay and visit the cat area again. It was obvious that she had become a cat lover. Nandong and Yui could only say goodbye to Yukino. After visiting the pet exhibition, it was already past 6 p.m., and Nandong and Yui were walking back holding hands with each other. Originally, Nandong wanted to have some substantial development today. Unfortunately, Yui actually brought Saber out today, a perfect dog-shaped lightbulb. It's so hard to get a room. I can only find another chance next time. But interest and so on still have to be charged. When Yui was delivered to her door, she suddenly said, "Tuanzi, I spent the whole day playing with you, shouldn't I be rewarded?" Nandong said this, staring straight at Yui's lips. Yui naturally noticed such an obvious hint, which made Yui feel ashamed all over. Nandong looked at Yui and couldn't help but start teasing her. "How about I take the initiative to collect this reward?" Nandong, who said this, kept bringing his extremely handsome face closer to Yui. This made Yui's whole body start to tremble a little. I don't know if it was caused by shyness or anticipation. When he was almost close to Yui's lips, Nandong stopped and had a tendency to retreat. This made Yui, who was shy and expectant next to her, stunned for a moment. Countless thoughts surged through her mind, and finally settled into one idea, and then she instinctively jumped forward. "We are almost enjoying the kissing scene in the bubble drama, how can we back out at this time?" Single quote. This momentary thought made Yui even bolder than usual. Nandong didn't even react to Yui's sudden attack. At this moment, Nandong was hugged by Yui like an octopus. The two people's lips met, and there was a fierce verbal dispute. Yui launched a fierce attack in an unprecedented manner. Nandong didn't notice for a moment and was attacked into the high ground, but he immediately reacted and started to counterattack, completely repelling Yui and attacking the opponent's high ground. Finally, under Nandong's 10-minute high-intensity attack, the opponent Yui fell into a state of weakness all over and dizziness. The two of them just hugged each other at the door of Yuigahama's house. After a while, Yui finally came back to her senses. He hit Nandong on the chest twice, but the force was so light that he didn't know whether it could kill the ant. This made Nandong couldn't help but laugh. Where did the powerful Tuanzi go? This makes Yui so embarrassed that she doesn't know how to explain it. Could it be that she has watched too many bubble dramas? Nandong no longer teases Yuigahama. "Yui, go back. I've been standing in front of your house for so long. If you don't go in, you will be discovered." Yui nodded shyly in response. Then he quickly broke away from Nandong's arms and ran to the door of his house to open the door. When he was about to enter, he stretched his head out and made a face. In response, Nandong just responded with a lip-licking expression, and Yui shrank back home shyly. After watching Yui go home completely, Nandong started to walk towards his office and bought a few lunch boxes on the way for dinner tonight. Soon Nandong returned to the office and quickly ate a few bento boxes for lunch. After eating, I didn't take a break. He went directly to the training area on the third floor and started to play a set of weird boxing techniques. Ever since I sensed the life energy, I have been trying to cultivate the power of chi and blood. This set of boxing techniques is used to refine one's own chi and blood. From the perspective of this fist and kick routine, it does not look like it is used to attack, but more like a shape movement made to lengthen the meridians of one's body. That's right, this is exactly what is spread from the Dragon Kingdom Martial Arts Association. It is a bodybuilding boxing technique exclusively used by martial artists. The purpose is to let the people keep fit and occasionally discover good seeds among the people. And when the life energy is sensed, you can use this boxing technique to blend the life energy with your own blood circulation to form the power of chi and blood. And this body refining boxing method is just the most basic blood energy training method in the Dragon Kingdom. What Nandong has to do at this time is to use this set of boxing techniques to integrate the huge and active life energy in his body with his own blood circulation to create the power of chi and blood. As Nandong continued to cycle through this set of boxing techniques, the blood circulation in the body continued to accelerate. The life energy in the body becomes more active and begins to be carried away bit by the blood circulation system in the body. When life energy is integrated into the blood circulation, it will continue to merge with the blood in this circulation, making the blood have even greater energy. Blood with huge energy continuously circulates throughout the body, meridians, blood vessels, muscles and skin, receiving a huge energy supply. The whole body began to become red and swollen, and traces of mist began to evaporate. The whole body began to become red and swollen, and traces of mist began to evaporate. The whole person is like a furnace, constantly smelting the life energy in the body, until the life energy is completely added to the blood circulation. At that time, the blood circulation will become chi and blood circulation, and in this circulation state, the body will be in a state of continuous strengthening exercise. This makes martial artists who have developed chi and blood become foodies, because if the chi and blood circulation is reduced to 10%, it is equivalent to constantly consuming energy for exercise. After Nangong Yang practiced this bodybuilding boxing technique for more than 3 hours, he felt hungry and stopped. As the boxing stopped, the blood circulation in the body began to slow down, and it was not enough to continue to drive all the life energy. Only part of the life energy continued to circulate with the blood. Obviously, it will take some time before the life energy in the body can be completely added to the blood circulation. He exhaled a breath of turbid air from his body, forming a column of white mist filled with heat, and the mist evaporating outside his body slowly dissipated. It's almost time. In a while, you will be able to completely refine your energy and blood and become a true martial artist. At that time, he will be the first person to achieve both spiritual and martial arts. I just don't know what kind of changes and effects the blood and spiritual power will produce when combined. Nangong Yang sighed with emotion, but the growling of his stomach kept reminding Nangong Yang that it was time to eat. Helpless, Nangong Yang didn't want to continue ordering takeout, so he just went out for a late-night snack. When I came to the bathroom, I rinsed off a little, then came out to change my clothes for going out, put on my black-rimmed glasses, and planned to go to the night market outside to find out what late-night snacks were good. In this way, Nangong Yang came to the night market near the office. The sanitation of the night market here was pretty good, and there was no garbage left anywhere. Nangong Yang found a barbecue restaurant here with a pretty good store. Because the current physical fitness has skyrocketed, the food we eat is more than 10 times that of ordinary people. So Nangong Yang, under the shocked gaze of the clerk and shopkeeper, Zuzu took 300 skewers for barbecue, and most of them were mutton and beef. This shocked both the store owner and the clerks as to whether he could eat it. One of the clerks looked at Nangong Yang with an incomprehensible expression. Nangong Yang ignored the shock of the store and clerk. Instead, he found a seat in the store and sat down, waiting for the barbecue to be served, while grabbing a few bottles of beer. As for why minors cannot drink, just ignore it. Perhaps it was midnight snack time, and more people came to eat barbecue, but most of them were just confused. He was very thoughtful when he spoke, for fear that others would not know that he was just out to fool around. Among them, the last few yellow hairs came, the most conspicuous and arrogant. The store was noisy for a while, but Nangong Yang didn't care, as long as it didn't disturb him from having a midnight snack. Soon the barbecue I selected was brought out, and several batches were prepared, with 10 large plates brought out. While serving the food, Nangong Yang unexpectedly saw Sake Kawasaki, who was working here. But since the two of them were not familiar with each other in the class, they just looked at each other and didn't say much. As for Nangong Yang, it was influential to Kawasaki Sake. The female supporting character in Chunmano didn't come from a wealthy family, so she had to go out to work. The reason for going out to work seems to be to go to college. While Nangong Yang was eating barbecue, he carefully looked at Sake Kawasaki, who was still working. It should be said that she is worthy of being the female supporting character in anime. She is really beautiful. Because the work clothes she wears are very revealing of her figure, Sake Kawasaki's figure now looks uneven, especially the peaks on her chest, which appear to have the youthful vitality of a girl. Nangong Yang's appetite was greatly increased, not to mention the other diners. I guess this is why this store is so popular. Thinking of this, Nangong Yang's heart that wanted to be loved by his family began to restless again. But there's no good reason now. Don't be in a hurry to strike up a conversation. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Thinking of Nangong Yang, I continued to eat the barbecue and drink beer at the table. Perhaps Nangong Yang is sitting at a table by himself, and there are 10 large plates of barbecue on the table, which looks like 300 skewers at least. This made the last group of Huang Mao who came in a little cautious. Immediately, one Huang Mao walked out first and came to sit in front of Nangong Yang. "Brother, we're going out for a barbecue tonight. How about I eat with you? There's so much, you may not be able to finish it, right?" As soon as Huang Mao sat down, he started to push. As he spoke, his hand naturally reached out to a plate of barbecue, ready to take a few skewers to try. Nangong Yang looked at Huang Mao sitting in front of him and said coldly, "If you dare to touch my barbecue, I will smash your teeth." Nangong Yang's words immediately made Huang Mao pause for a moment, and then he said extremely unhappy, "Brother, you can't say that. I'm giving you face by eating a few skewers of barbecue. If I don't give you face, did you see that my brother at the next table will come in front of you and ask you to give me face?" Huang Mao, who said this, pointed to the group of Huang Mao on the other side. "So you want me to smash your teeth?" As soon as Nangong Yang said this, the group of yellow hairs on the other side stood up one after another. This made the atmosphere in the store quiet for a while. The store manager and clerk had no intention of breaking up the fight or anything like this. This kind of thing happens not infrequently, and the store owner is not worried at all that they will take action in the store. It is obvious that they have something to rely on. But this makes Sake Kawasaki, who works here, a little worried that his classmate, Nangong Yang, will be beaten. "Brother, I won't embarrass you. How about you treat us to a barbecue?" Huang Mao, who was sitting in front of him, said again, and at the same time, his paused hand wanted to grab the barbecue again. Nangong Yang, who was still calm and eating barbecue, looked at the situation in front of him and felt that a fight was inevitable. Nangong Yang put down the barbecue and stood up. This made Huang Mao's hand in front of him stop again, and he suddenly said angrily, "You are really shameless, don't you know we are?" Before Huang Mao could finish speaking, Nangong Yang grabbed his neck and lifted him out. Before leaving, he said to Kawasaki Sake, "Kawasaki-kun, please keep an eye on the barbecue on my table. Don't take it away from me. I'll return it later." After saying that, Nangong Yang continued to walk out of the store carrying Huang Mao. The yellow-haired people at the other table were stunned for a moment, and they all got up and chased him out. This also made Kawasaki Sake even more worried. He didn't know what to do. After all, he was a classmate, so it wouldn't be good to just ignore him. Hurry to find the store manager and ask for help. "Store manager, please help me. He is my classmate, and he spent so much money in the store. The impact of being beaten will not be good." After Kawasaki Sake finished speaking, he bowed slightly to the store manager. I silently thought to myself that I can only help here as much as I can. This made the store manager feel a little embarrassed, so he ignored it. After all, Sake Kawasaki is the signature of his own store. Looks like I need to go outside and stretch my muscles to prevent my body from getting completely rusty. The store manager who said this moved his body. As his body moved, the bones on his body continued to crackle. He was obviously a practitioner. Nangong Yang pinched Huang Mao's neck and mentioned a dead end in an alley on the edge of the night market. Along the way, I saw passers-by pointing, but no one dared to come forward. Throw Huang Mao, who was about to die from lack of oxygen, directly to the ground. Huang Mao fell to the ground, breathing frantically, as if he would die if he took less breath. Nangong Yang looked down at Huang Mao lying on the ground like a salted fish. "Don't you resist. I'm going to smash your teeth one by one next." Huang Mao, who was lying on the ground, took a few breaths and shouted sharply, "Just wait to die. My brother will be here soon." Just after he finished speaking, the group of yellow-haired men from behind had already caught up with him. This made Huang Mao lying on the ground suddenly feel more confident. He even stood up with trembling legs and said with a proud look on his face, "You kid, you have to break 2 of your legs today, otherwise it will be difficult to understand the hatred in my heart for your brother." Nangong Yang also noticed the group of yellow hairs coming from behind, and understood the source of the confidence of the Daomao in front of him. "No more nonsense," He reached out and punched Huang Mao in front of him in the mouth. This punch used a little force, and Huang Mao's jaw was immediately dislocated and broken. The 2 rows of teeth inside were almost 10 to 10, and the remaining few were still crumbling. Suddenly Huang Mao fell to the ground again and let out a scream. It wasn't over yet. Nangong Yang went up and punched him again. He promised to smash the broken teeth, but of course not a single one was left. After this punch, Huang Mao fell unconscious on the spot, and all his teeth were completely lost, but his jaw was almost useless from now on. This ferocious scene made the group of yellow hairs following behind stop on the spot. The leader of the group of yellow hairs who followed behind bravely shouted. The leader of the group of yellow hairs who followed behind bravely shouted. Boy, don't you know we are from Suzerain High School? Aren't you afraid that we will find someone to block you tomorrow if you actually start a fight with our Suzerain High School? Nangong Yang raised his eyebrows when he heard this. So, have hot-blooded colleges and universities also joined the worldview? I just don't know, has the combat power of passionate colleges and universities been strengthened? But Nangong Yang still looked indifferent. This made Huang Mao, the leader, furious and threatened again. Boy, don't make a mistake. Our boss is Brother Mikami, and he is also a well-known person in Suzerain High School. You are a monster that can even break boulders with your fists and feet. If you don't want to die, I advise you to kneel on the ground, kowtow and admit your mistake. Can you break boulders between your fists and feet? There is no such strong combat power in the comics, so the combat power has been strengthened. But no matter how strong he is not as strong as his own substitute. In just 4 words, his substitute is invincible. Nangong Yang doesn't want to hear it either. These ants are fooling around here. Trash, just a fight, so much nonsense. After saying that, Nangong Yang rushed forward and punched each person in the mouth. The purpose was to knock out both rows of their teeth. After a while, these yellow-haired idiots all lost their teeth and lay on the ground wailing one by one. One of them, Wang Mao, even roared. You don't respect martial ethics and carry out sneak attacks. Nangong Yang just glanced at this little yellow hair. The little yellow hair shriveled up immediately. At this time, the manager of the barbecue restaurant behind changed into a tight t-shirt and rushed over. It was obvious from the changed t-shirts that the store manager was ready for a fight. Didn't he come a little too late? If Nangong Yang didn't have any fighting power, he might have been beaten into a dog by the time he came. The store manager who came over looked at the pile of yellow hair lying on the ground and looked at Nangong Yang in shock. I was surprised that Nangong Yang had such high strength. Nangong Yang can also feel the traces of martial arts training from the even muscles on the store manager's body. It's just that his talent is not high. After practicing at this age, his strength will be several times that of ordinary people. It is impossible to become a true martial artist in this life. Is something wrong, store manager? As he spoke, Nangong Yang pulled off Huang Mao's clothes lying on the ground and wiped the blood on his hands. The store manager was shocked and quickly recovered and said with a smile. No, the little girl in the store asked me to come over and see if there was anything I could help with. It seems like I don't need any help now. Thank you very much, manager. Now I have to go back and continue eating barbecue. Nangong Yang said after thanking him slightly. No need to thank you, just thank that little girl. Let's go, after all, you are the big customer in our store today. Quote. After saying this, the store manager was very natural and put his arm around Nangong Yang's shoulders and said. What's your relationship with the little Kawasaki girl in our store? She was quite anxious when you took Huang Mao out just now. Just classmates, I heard the store manager say with a smile. That's so youthful. The 2 of them returned to the store while chatting. Kawasaki Shaxi in the store also breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the 2 of them returning safely. Nangong Yang returned to his seat and continued eating, while waving to Sake Kawasaki. This made Sake Kawasaki hesitate a little, but he still walked over and said in a cold tone. What's the matter, Nangong-san? I just want to thank you. The store manager just said that you asked him to come out to help. So how about you sit down and have barbecue with me? I'll treat you. Sake Kawasaki obviously didn't expect that the store manager would reveal his background. But he still refused. No, I still have to work. After saying that, Sake Kawasaki walked away. Nandong Yang couldn't help but lamented that Kawasaki Shaxi was really cold on the outside and hot on the inside, but it was a bit difficult to communicate. Forget it, don't worry about anything else and continue eating barbecue. Anyway, there will be plenty of opportunities for communication in the future. Nandong Yang quickly finished all the barbecue for more than 10 people, which surprised the diners and staff in the store. Only the store manager knew clearly that the young man in front of him was an expert, so he naturally ate a lot. Just based on this amount of food, I'm afraid he has reached the realm of a true martial artist. After all, their barbecue is all about big meat skewers with good portions. If you can make more than 300 skewers, that's really awesome. At first, I thought the boy was planning to take it away, but to my surprise, he actually ate it all. After Nandong Yang settled the account, he returned to the office. Time flies and the Golden Week holiday is completely over. In the first class in the morning, Nandong Yang almost stepped on the deadline of the bell to come to the class. Surprisingly, Shizuka Hiratsuka was not seen. According to common sense, people should have been in the classroom long ago. When he came to his seat and said hello to Yui, he asked, "Tuanzi, the school bell has rang, why haven't you seen the teacher come yet? Do you know anything?" Yui next to her had a strange expression, but she still came slightly closer. Nandong Yang said softly, "You forgot, last time we went to Shinomiya's house to complete a commission. When I came to school today, I saw the Shinomiya girl coming to our school in a car." After being reminded by Yui, Nandong Yang finally remembered that he had told Shinomiya Yanan that Kagaya Shinomiya would transfer here after he recovered from his illness. "I guess that's it." Soon Hiratsuka quietly came to the podium and said, "Today I made an impromptu announcement in class. 2 students will be transferred to our class. Now let me introduce it to you. The 2 students from outside can come in." As the variety enters, the words fall. 2 beautiful girls walked in outside the door. One was Shinomiya Kagaya with her long black hair tied back into a bun. One is Chika Fujiwara, who has long pink hair and a bow tied in front of her bangs. When the boys in the class saw that the transfer students turned out to be 2 such beautiful girls, they all exclaimed. Especially among the Hayato trio, Shotobi screamed the loudest, but after being glared at by Hiratsuka Shizuka, he withered again. Miura Yuko felt unhappy when she saw the boys around her making noises. Nandong Yang was a little surprised. He seemed to have only told Kagaya Shinomiya to come over. It seemed that Chika Fujiwara was not there, right? Although I don't understand it, it doesn't seem like a loss. Shinomiya Kagaya and Fujiwara Chika respectively wrote their names on the blackboard and briefly introduced themselves. When introducing herself, Shinomiya Kagaya seemed extremely cold. Only Chika Fujiwara smiled when she introduced herself, which made most people in the class have a good impression. With the introduction of the 2, this shocked Hayama Hayato in the class. Because Hayama Hayato recognized the identity of 2 people, one was the Miss Shinomiya Foundation who controlled a quarter of Sakura country's economic lifeline. The other one was a young lady who came from a family of politicians in Sakura country. Her great-grandfather was the former prime minister and her uncle was the current provincial minister. Her family had huge power. Why Sobugao escaped from Shuchen Academy made Hayama Hayato a little unsure. Shizuka Hiratsuka, who was next to him, saw the 2 of them finish their introduction and stepped forward and said, "You 2, please sit in the back row first. There are still empty seats in the back row. If there is any inconvenience, just come to me after class and I will help you adjust your seats again. Also, Nandong Yang, take 2 classmates to get familiar with the school during your spare time, do you know?" Nandong Yang saw that he was called out and immediately responded, "Okay." Hiratsuka watched Nandong Yang agree and said to the 2 people next to him, "Go down and sit down, get ready for class. Good teacher. X2. Then Shinomiya Kagaya came to the empty seat behind Nandong Yang and sat down. Chika Fujiwara followed behind and sat next to Kagaya. This made the boys in the class envious. Shinomiya Kagaya, who had just sat down, softly greeted Nandong Yang in front of her. "Nandong-kun, morning, are you surprised by my appearance?" Nandong Yang nodded in response. "It's a bit surprising. I thought you wanted to rest for a while." While the two were chatting, Chika Fujiwara's eyes flashed. Is this young man in front of her the one who asked Kagaya to transfer to another school? After all, due to Shinomiya Kagaya's transfer of schools, he also transferred to another school. How much energy does it take for the Shinomiya family to agree to Kagaya's transfer from a prestigious school like Shuchin to an ordinary school like this? After all, studying in a prestigious school not only allows you to make more connections, but also recruits talents from the common people in mixed schools. This is equivalent to giving up huge benefits. Soon the first class in the morning was over. The male and female students in the class gathered next to Shinomiya Kagaya and Fujiwara Chika respectively, and kept asking questions. The male and female students in the class gathered next to Shinomiya Kagaya and Fujiwara Chika respectively, and kept asking questions. The two of them were very polite when asked, and they easily became familiar with the male and female students in the class. This made Miura Yuko, who was watching from her seat, feel a little unhappy. Especially when I saw the classmates in the class talking, they began to unconsciously take the lead, or to be precise, Shinomiya Kagaya. For a moment, I felt that the peak of my interpersonal relationships in the class had been challenged. But looking at the aristocratic temperament of the two, I couldn't help but feel the need to compare. Hayama Hayato wanted to go over and get to know each other, but he was embarrassed to see so many classmates surrounding them. The two people surrounded by Kagaya and Chika began to speak after getting acquainted with the people in the class. Okay, everyone, we all know each other a little bit, so there is no need to crowd together. It will be a long time in the future, so we can communicate again when we have the opportunity. After saying these words, the classmates surrounding the two people also realized that something was wrong and dispersed one after another. This made Nangong Yang and Uegahama Yui, who were sitting in front of them, heave a sigh of relief. Nangong Yang couldn't help but turn around and complain to Shinomiya Kagaya. What you know is that a transfer student is here, but what you don't know is that you think it's a celebrity. I didn't expect you to be so charming, Kagaya, and you easily conquered everyone in the class. Kagaya Shinomiya blushed shyly when she heard Nangong Yang, who was so familiar to her, call her by her name directly. After all, the last commission was over, and there wasn't much communication due to recovery. When the boys in the class saw Nangong Yang easily making the new goddess blush, they gritted their teeth in envy and wished they could eat Nangong Yang alive. And Kagaya, why don't you introduce this classmate who transferred to another school with you? After speaking, he blinked at Shinomiya Kagaya and then looked at Fujiwara Chika. After Nangong Yang finished speaking, before Kagaya Shinomiya could introduce it, Chika Fujiwara next to her spoke first. My name is Fujiwara Chika. You can call me Chika. Only friends approved by Kagaya can call me that. Fujiwara Chika, who took the lead, said energetically. While speaking, he also made a scissor hand gesture, which looked really cute. Next to Jean, Shinomiya Kagaya became furious, stretched out her hand to knock off Kyungwa's scissor hands, and then added. Because our Shinomiya family has always had cooperation and alliance with the Fujiwara family, our children of the same age will be arranged together. So this time I transferred to another school and Kyungwa came with me. Only then did Nangong Yang understand why he transferred two people at once. It turned out to be this. He immediately reached out to Chika Fujiwara and said at the same time. It turns out that there is such a relationship, Kyungwa, I will give you more advice in the future. My name is Nangong Yang. You can just call me Nangong. The person next to me is Uegahama Yui. When Nangong Yang introduced himself, he also introduced Yui next to him. Yui immediately echoed, just call me Yui, it's easy to remember. Fujiwara Chika immediately smiled and waved. Don't make it so formal. It's a bit embarrassing. But Nangong-kun, can you tell me how you let Kagaya transfer to this ordinary university? Then I will thank you very much. After saying this, Chika Fujiwara showed her watery eyes and started to act cute with her mouth pouted. Immediately, Nangong Yang's girlish heart almost melted. It also made the boys in the class who had been looking here howl like wolves, which attracted the contempt of the girls. Before Nangong Yang could reply, Shinomiya Kagaya next to him immediately interrupted. This is a secret, can't be told. Fujiwara Chika looked at Shinomiya Kagaya's determined look and knew it was all over. Immediately wilted. Okay, if I don't tell you, I won't tell you. If I ask you, you won't tell me. If I ask Nangong-jun, you won't let me. It really makes me curious. Regarding this, Shinomiya Kagaya still had a cold face, as if there was no room for negotiation. Ding dong ding dong ding dong. As the bell rang, everyone in the class quickly returned to their seats and waited for class. Time passed and it was soon lunch time. After Nangong-yang packed up his textbooks, he said to the two people behind him. Did you bring food, or did you say you had to go to the canteen to eat by yourself? Nangong-yang just finished speaking. I saw an old man dressed as a butler walking in from the door, carrying an obviously huge lunchbox in his hand. He walked to the back of the class as if nothing had happened and came to Shinomiya Kagaya's table. Inhumane. Miss Kagaya, Miss Kionwa, where are you dining? Nangong-yang, including everyone in the class, couldn't help but smack her lips. She was indeed a powerful lady. She had a housekeeper to help bring meals to her last school. Shinomiya Kagaya and Fujiwara Chika didn't seem to think it was anything, but were used to it. After all, it was always like this in Shuchen before. Shinomiya Kagaya couldn't think of where to eat for a moment, so she had to look at Nangong-yang with a questioning look in her eyes, as if she wanted to express where is better to eat. Without thinking much, Nangong-yang said directly, the location on the rooftop is wider. So several people walked to the rooftop, including Uegahama Yui. On the way up, I also met Yuri Kawaka and Yatsuya Miko, so the two of them joined the team again. In an instant, 6 people walked towards the rooftop in a mighty manner, including the butler. There were 7 people in total. This made some students or teachers at Sobu High School confused and thought something had happened. It wasn't until a teacher who knew the identities of Shinomiya Kagaya and Fujiwara Chika reminded them that they stopped meddling. Soon, a few people came to the rooftop, and the housekeeper was very sensible and took out a prepared camping tablecloth and spread it on the ground. He took out the huge bento and began to lay out the dishes inside, but the strange thing was that most of them were meat, with only a few vegetables, and the meal seemed to be enough for more than a dozen people. When all the food was put on the table, the old butler retreated to the rooftop door and guarded the rooftop door. Yatsugamiko and Uegahama Yui looked at the rich dishes in front of them and were embarrassed to take out the bento they had prepared. There are all kinds of steaks, lobsters, big fish and meat in front of you, but one thing stands out, the meat is luxurious. The bento boxes I prepared for Nangong-yang were just mediocre, so I had no nerve to take them out. Nangong-yang saw that Kagaya Shinomiya's meals were all set out, and he waited for Miko, Yui, and Shalwa's meals to be set out as well. Shalwa didn't have any scruples, so he laid out the meal he prepared. It was an ordinary bento, but the portion was relatively large. At the same time, I also prepared one for Nangong-yang, which is equivalent to bringing 2. After getting married, it has become an unspoken rule to bring food to Nangong-yang. As for Miko and Yui, after seeing Shalwa showing off, they stopped worrying about whether they were luxurious or not, and just started showing off too. Suddenly, the entire camping tablecloth was filled with meals, and it looked like there was enough food for at least 30 people. This made Chika Fujiwara a little stunned. Although Chika Fujiwara's family is rich, she has never been in the habit of wasting food. There were only 6 people to eat in front of her, but she took out meals for nearly 30 people. Isn't this a complete waste? When I think of this question, I immediately ask. Kagaya, there are so many lunch boxes prepared here, I'm afraid the few of us can't finish them all. Isn't it a bit wasteful? Why don't you ask the classmates you just met to come over for a meal? Fujiwara Chika's meaning was already obvious. She was obsessed with the food in front of her and it would be wasted if she couldn't finish it. In response to this, Shinomiya Kagaya just turned aside Fujiwara Chikayan and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely finish it and nothing will be wasted. Besides, I don't have the habit of wasting food. Yes, it's impossible to waste food or anything, we are all good eaters." Lily Schwanwa next to me said very naturally, "She alone can easily finish all the meals in front of her." Speaking of this, what did Lily Schwanwa seem to think of? From the pleated skirt pocket here, I took out another small bag. The bag was transparent, with dozens of peanuts inside, and he handed himself to Nangong-yang and said at the same time, "I made this in the morning, but I forgot to give it to you when I got to school. I only remembered it after eating." The peanuts that Lily Xuanhua gave to Nangong Yang were gourmet peanuts made by her own substitute. Eating them would give her a beneficial effect. Nangong Yang took the gourmet peanuts, took one out and put it in his mouth to eat. For a moment, the ultimate delicious food is full of enjoyment. At the same time, the body is active and the soul is excited, creating a more comfortable feeling. At this time, Nangong Yang looked like he had eaten the best food in the world. Yui, Kagaya and Chika were all curious. They just ate a peanut, but they actually looked like they were delicacies in the world. Especially Fujiwara Chika. She was the most curious because she was not familiar with Yurikawaka and was embarrassed to ask for it. But Nangong Yang was already familiar with it in the class and immediately said, "Nangong-kun, can you give us some peanuts to try? Nangong-kun, can you give us some peanuts to try?" After saying that, Kianwa still showed an expectant look on her face and stretched out her hand in front of Nangong Yang. The meaning was already obvious. Nangong Yang did not refuse, and took out a few more peanuts from the small bag and put them in Kianwa's hand. "Here you go, Yui and Kagaya also have yours. How does it taste?" Naturally, there will be no shortage of gourmet peanuts. After all, Yui and Kagaya have never eaten them. At the same time, Nangong Yang also wanted to see what the three of them looked like after eating gourmet peanuts for the first time. Johnsy and Shalwa next to them looked like they were watching a show. After all, I am waiting for someone, but I know that the strange expression after eating delicious food for the first time can be made into an emoticon. Soon the three of them threw the gourmet peanuts into their mouths and tasted them. At first I didn't feel anything, but as I chewed the peanuts thoroughly, a rich and extremely fragrant fragrance spread out. It starts to explode from the taste buds, causing a special impact on the taste buds, causing them to have a special paralysis effect. Then everyone's expressions began to change, as if they had taken aphrodisiacs, and the expressions on their faces began to become strange. Not only that, the three of them can also feel that their physical condition and mental state are better than ever. At this time, the three of them seemed to others to have eaten some computer accessories, and they were all happy. Shalwa and Johnsy next to them covered their mouths and snickered, while Nangong Yang raised the corners of his mouth. Soon the three of them recovered from that strange state. Yui and Kagaya couldn't help but recall the scene just now, and suddenly fell into a state of shyness. Their strange state was really too shameful. Only Kianwa, who has an out-of-character personality, doesn't care about this, but is shocked that these peanuts are so delicious. At the same time, I felt the changes in my physical and mental state, and my whole body was filled with strength. Those who knew it were eating peanuts, but those who didn't know thought they had eaten elixir. He quickly looked at Shalwa and Nangong Yang and asked, "How on earth are these peanuts made? It tastes so delicious, and it makes my whole body feel warm. This doesn't even look like delicious food that humans can make." Nangong Yang and Shalwa were not surprised by Kianwa's exclamation. Who has eaten such delicious food for the first time and has not yet exclaimed, "As long as it tastes good, as for how to make it and who made it, you will naturally know later." Nangong Yang smiled as he said this, obviously trying to trick him. As long as Chika Fujiwara is curious now and keeps her curiosity in check, there will be many ways in the future to slowly make her take the initiative to become his dependent. When Shalwa saw that Nangong Yang didn't say anything, he also looked helpless, showing that he had nothing to say. At this time, Yui and Kagaya beside them had recovered from their shy state. Nangong Yang said immediately, "Okay, it's been a while since lunchtime. Let's eat quickly. After eating, I will take Kianwa and Kagaya to get familiar with the school." Chika Fujiwara saw that she couldn't get what she wanted, so she didn't continue. Although Kianwa has an out-of-touch personality, she is also very scheming, knows how to advance and retreat, and does not keep asking questions. "Speak immediately, then let's eat quickly. I also want to see how big the appetite you said is." After saying this, Chika Fujiwara's curiosity shifted again. It only took half a day to transfer to another school, but it was much more interesting than my time in Shuchen. Then everyone began to eat, because the food was all placed together, and everyone did not eat their own, but shared, "You eat mine, I eat yours," and so on. It also allowed Kagaya and Kianwa to try common people's cuisine for the first time. Perhaps because of the novelty, the two of them felt good after eating. It's just that Nangong Yang was a little strange when he ate Shalwa's lunch. Why didn't Shalwa use his substitute ability to make his own lunch more delicious? Faced with such questions, ask Shalwa through the Insect King contract. Shalwa, why don't you use your substitute to make your lunch delicious? It doesn't seem difficult, right? Single quote. Faced with Nangong Yang's inquiry, Shalwa gave this response. No, Nangong-kun, if you are used to eating delicacies cooked by your avatar, will you be able to eat normal meals in the future? Single quote. The most important thing is the food cooked by the family, shouldn't you eat it in the future? Single quote. Nangong Yang also understood after hearing this. It's not realistic to eat delicious food cooked by a substitute every day. The most important thing is that it's easy to spoil your appetite. During the meal, Nangong Yang also used the Insect King contract to introduce to Yui and Kagaya respectively that the gourmet peanuts they just ate were made from Shalwa's stand-in ability, as well as Shalwa's stand-in's ability and gourmet food. Gain effect. Both Yui and Kagaya exclaimed in their hearts, how abnormal and powerful their abilities are. Because several people are dependents, they have the ability to communicate mentally with the Insect King contract, and this psychological communication is not only able to communicate with the owner of the contract, Nangong Yang. It can also communicate with other contracted relatives, but it only needs the consent of the contract owner Nangong Yang. This is equivalent to a disguised group chat, and Nangong Yang is the group leader. He can also see the messages they send to each other. Therefore, the few of them didn't communicate too much when they were eating. They just ate in silence. At most, they only made eye contact, but they didn't know how passionate the conversation was in their hearts. This made Fujiwara Chika, who was a little out of touch next to her, feel depressed, as if she was left out alone. But she didn't feel anything was wrong. This feeling made Kianwa a little uncomfortable. As for why Nangong Yang and the others don't talk outside, the main reason is that most of them involve the secrets of their own family. For example, this is what we are talking about now. Miko, when Kagaya went to your house to entrust the work, we didn't even see your substitute in the end. Yui, yes, after so long, you should know what your substitute is. Miko, so could you please introduce your own substitute? Shalwa, yes, we have just introduced our substitutes and abilities, now it's you, Kagaya-chan. Nangong, put your head in and wait and see. Jonzi, Nangong-jun, how did you manage to send the emoticon message in the Insect King's contract? Nangong, just thinking, I forgot that I passed the Insect King contract to you for the first time. Nangong, the Insect King contract can achieve heart-to-heart communication. You can send whatever you want. Miko, well, Kagaya, you must have used a substitute in private, so why don't you just post the scene where you were thinking about using a substitute? Kagaya, then I'll try to upload the picture in my heart. Yui, I didn't expect this Insect King contract to have such a convenient ability. Shalwa, yeah, it's like a chat group. You can upload videos, pictures, and send emoticons. Shalwa, I even make emoticons of my own imagination, such as seeing the child licking ham. Jonzi, don't think wildly, Shalwa gets knifed. Yui, it's very interesting. I'll do it too, Nangong topless. Shalwa, this is good, seeing my son's nosebleed. Jonzi, Shalwa, don't make emoticons based on me, Shalwa spanks. Shalwa, but Mionzi also used my blueprint. Mionzi picks his nose. When Jonzi saw Shalwa's imaginary emoticon this time, he felt like he was about to vomit blood and his image was almost over. Outside, Jonzi glared at Shalwa fiercely, and at the same time stretched his hand to the soft flesh of Shalwa's waist, trying to pinch it. This frightened Shalwa outside, and he quickly begged for mercy in the Insect King contract. Shalwa, seeing that I was wrong, I kept my hands full, Shalwa knelt down. Nangong, you two are so elegant, the Insect King contract has made you happy. Nangong, Yui prohibits hot images, Yui gets a knife. Yui, I admit my mistake, but I won't change it, Nangong bears shoulder. Kagaya, memory screen. As Shinomiya Kagaya released the memory picture, a picture appeared in everyone's mind. Kagaya Shinomiya was wearing casual clothes in a room with human-shaped stone sculptures, while Hayasaka stood at the door at the back. Kagaya looked serious and waved forward with one hand, summoning a girl wearing a white kimono, with long ice blue hair. Her skin was white, and she looked exactly like a snow girl. As this figure appeared, the surrounding temperature began to drop, and snowflakes even appeared. Even Hayasaka Ai, who was standing at the back door, started to get excited. After the snow girl appeared, she raised her hand and gently blew a breath of cold air forward. At first, the cold air came out of the snow girl's mouth, only a weak stream. As the cold air left his palm, it became larger and larger, instantly freezing the room and stone sculptures in front of him. As the cold air left his palm, it became larger and larger, instantly freezing the room and stone sculptures in front of him. Suddenly, the room in front of Shinomiya Kagaya was completely frozen. But it wasn't over yet. Shinomiya Kagaya waved her hand again, letting the Yukino in front of her launch an attack. Then the snow girl made a move with her hand, and the snow scattered around her turned into ice crystals and floated in the air. The ice crystals floating in the air began to transform into various blades or cones. As the ice crystals formed, he reached out and pushed forward, and various ice blades and ice picks hit the stone sculpture in front of him. In just a moment, the stone sculpture in front of him was completely shattered. You must know that the stone sculptures in front of you are carved from extremely hard granite. It can be easily smashed with various ice blades and ice picks. You can imagine how destructive it is. The destructive power is at least B. At this point, the memory screen sent by Shinomiya Kagaya is completely gone. Suddenly the Insect King contract was boiling. Shalwa, Kagaya-chan's stand-in is so beautiful, she looks like the legendary Snow Onna. Yui, yes, and he also has the ability to control ice and snow and freeze objects. Miko, this should be the first substitute among our family members with long-range attacks. Kagaya, yes, this substitute is called Snow Girl because it is so similar to the Snow Girl recorded in the classics, so I just chose it that way. Nangong, Kagaya, does your substitute have the ability to control ice and snow? Kagaya, yeah, but I feel like this controlling ice and snow, freezing objects ability is more than that. Nangong, oh, it looks like it still has great potential. As everyone relied on the Insect King contract and chatted in their hearts while eating lunch, the meal for nearly 30 people was almost finished. Chika Fujiwara, who had been excluded from eating outside, watched so many meals go into the stomachs of several people. Still couldn't help but ask. The food intake for the 5 of you is too exaggerated. On average, each person ate more than 5 people. How did you, Kagaya, eat it without changing your expression? While speaking, his eyes were still staring at the stomachs of the 5 Kagayas, which didn't seem to be bulging at all. Chika Fujiwara's question. Kagaya and the others, who were still chatting passionately in the Insect King's contract, were stunned for a moment, and then they realized that they had forgotten Chika Fujiwara. So everyone stopped talking about the Insect King contract. After all, it's not good to forget someone all the time, even if the other person doesn't know it. Kagaya, who was being questioned just now, coughed twice and replied. I've been growing recently, so I've eaten a bit more. As for other people, I guess that's how much they eat. Kagaya herself didn't believe what she said, let alone Fujiwara Chika. Hearing this, Kionwa just blinked. That smart head has already thought of it. Kagaya is definitely hiding something from herself. And he definitely has an extraordinary relationship with the 5 people in front of him. Maybe this is why Kagaya transferred here, but now she has no clue. It was discovered that Kagaya suddenly became able to eat. In the past, her food intake was normal at Shuchen, but once she came here, her food intake increased by at least 5 times. Just wait, Detective Chika Fujiwara, will definitely catch you and find out all your secrets. Thinking of this, Fujiwara Chika showed an inexplicable smile, leaving Kagaya and Miko next to them confused. Soon everyone finished their lunch and began to collect the lunch boxes on the tablecloth. The butler behind the door had also been paying attention. When he started to put away the tableware, he also came over to put away Kagaya and Kionwa's tableware. Then Nangong Yang took Kagaya and Kionwa around the entire school. Mionzi, Shalwa and Yui went back to class to rest. It is worth noting that when Nangong Yang took Kagaya and Kionwa to stroll around the school, I discovered that Hayasaka Ai, who also transferred to another school, seemed to be in disguise and did not come to say hello to Kagaya and Nangong Yang. Soon Nangong Yang took the two of them to visit the entire school and then returned to class together. It's time for afternoon club activities. After school, Kagaya and Chika didn't even participate in club activities, so they just took a special car back. The explanation given was that on the first day of coming to school, I didn't know much about club activities. Let's wait and see what clubs to join later. It seems that there are other important things to do, but I didn't tell Nangong Yang. But it doesn't matter, Nangong Yang has already arrived at the classical literature department. Seeing Chetaru waiting in the club early in the morning, Nangong Yang said hello. Are you going to look for the missing bunny girl senpai today? Of course it is. According to various investigations and verifications, the bunny girl senior who can definitely disappear must exist. Chetaru, who heard Nangong Yang's question, immediately shouted with excitement. He stood up from his seat unconsciously. This made Nangong Yang feel uncomfortable for a moment. This curious baby is so persistent that he has been taking Nangong Yang around the school to look for her before Golden Week. I didn't expect that even after the entire Golden Week, I was still so persistent. Although Nangong Yang knew that this rumor was true, he also knew what was going on. But it's hard to talk about this kind of thing directly. You have to find Sakurajima first. But the problem is that he can't find it. Nangong Yang even suspects that he has been affected. He can only remember the name but can't see the person. Okay, let's continue visiting the school today. How about we start with the library? Okay, let's start from the library this time. After saying that, Chetaru immediately grabbed Nangong Yang's clothes, walked out of the club activity room, and walked towards the library. Nangong Yang couldn't help but complain behind him. You can't eat hot tofu if you're anxious. However, Chetaru retorted at the right time. But I can eat enough. Just like this, the two of them were arguing, and then they arrived at the library. Arriving at the library, the two immediately started searching. To be precise, Nangong Yang followed Chetaru and turned on his spiritual vision for observation. After all, I'm not sure if I can see my Sakurajima with just my naked eyes like the protagonist Sakuta Azusagawa in the anime. Soon the two of them searched the library, but couldn't find the wool. This makes Nangong Yang a little disappointed and worried. After all, this rumor about the missing bunny girl senior has been circulating for a long time. The degree of disappearance should be very high. If it is not found again, it may disappear completely. Maybe it's because I heard Nangong Yang's emotion. After the two of them finished searching the library, they were going to take a look around the teaching building to see if there was any time. Finally, Nangong Yang saw a bunny girl. At the door of the library, a beautiful girl wearing a bunny girl costume walked in. Because she was wearing bunny girl shoes, her long, slender and round legs were highlighted. The long legs were even wrapped in black mesh stockings, making her look particularly hot and seductive. The bunny girl costume on the upper body completely exposes the hands on the white back, and the peaks on the chest make the bunny girl costume full. The bunny girl earrings on her head make the beautiful girl in front of her even more seductive and cute. Coupled with that good face and exquisite facial features, Nangong Yang is a little uncontrollable at first glance. It's like a fairy is here, charming all living beings. If that doesn't work, we have to find a way to contain her, so as not to cause harm to the world. Nangong Yang thought so and couldn't help but fell into a daze. This made Chetaru hold back the corner of her clothes for a while. When she turned around, she saw Nangong Yang in a daze. Shouted quickly, "What are Nangong-kun doing? Let's keep looking." Chetaru's words brought Nangong Yang out of his daze. Only then did I notice that my Sakurajima, who was at the door just now, had already entered the library. Nangong Yang knew that this opportunity to see my Sakurajima was rare, so she couldn't miss it. He didn't reply to what he just said, but changed the subject to Chetaru. "I have found the missing bunny girl senpai." "What? Found it? Where is it? Why can't I see it?" After hearing the news, Chetaru became excited for a moment and kept looking around, trying to find something. Nangong Yang held it down immediately, and Chetaru's head spinning around said, "You can't even see her in your current state. That bunny girl senior passed by me very conspicuously just now. This way you can't even pay attention, which proves that you can't see her. What can't I see? What should I do? Is there any solution?" For a moment, Chetaru was like an ant on a hot pot, spinning around anxiously. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.